Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. Today is Tuesday, February 17th, and we are going to have both committee meetings and a regular session this evening. It's Tuesday in commemorance of President's Day being yesterday, so we normally meet on Mondays, but tonight we'll be beginning with the Committee of the Whole. Committees serve as information building and issue development forums. No final legislative actions occur during committee meetings. The item before the Committee of the Whole this evening first is about drones and for the first responders and a specific grant opportunity that we're going to be discussing in 3 phases. Council members are aware that this topic first came to City and Safety Services, and we are now discussing it in the Committee of the Whole because this has moved from just a discussion of a grant opportunity for a city safety resource to one that has clearly had implications for concerns about privacy and civil liberties, and specifically need to discuss more information about how this tool or an opportunity could be beneficial to the city, and to have an opportunity for members of the public to share any questions or concerns that they have. So when we are in committees, we will have the council member who's sponsoring the legislation speak to the topic, and then we hear from the administration, and then we invite comment from the public before the committee discusses what we've heard so far. We will also be taking motions and seconds to advance topics from committee to regular session or to not do so. So first, to clarify that we are talking about this drone topic in 3 phases, we'll begin with the civil liberties and the amendments to Athens City Code Title III proposed to add advanced technology and civil liberties policy. And to begin discussion on this, I will turn to Council Member Isherwood, who is the council member introducing this for consideration.
Thank you, President McCary. This program came to my committee as I was informed by the City Safety Services Director that the Chief of Police had applied for this grant through the Department of Transportation. And the support that I've shown for this program came for a number of factors. One, as a way for our city services to more effectively respond to emergencies. Because of the cost effectiveness of the program. So at a time when we are, and a number of people have reached out to me about concerns about expending city funds on this program. But this is because of the cost effectiveness of the program. For 2 years, the city will not expend any funds on this. We will put the money out first, but it'll be fully reimbursable. All the money spent for the first 2 years will be reimbursed. So we won't be using any city funds to cover that. I understand the county already has a drone. If we were being asked to purchase this one, I would question the validity of this, but it does not cost the city a dime to get this piece of equipment that could be very effective. Also, at a time of budgeting challenges, council should be encouraging city departments to seek out grant funds that allow them to operate more effectively with the resources we can give them. And the other thing was the administration, from the conversations I had, the first conversation I had with the City Safety Services Director and with Chief Magruder, was there a very clear willingness from the beginning to work with council and the community to listen to residents on developing a meaningful set of guardrails to protect city residents from abuse. Now, the truncated timeline, because of our understanding of what the grant requirements needed us to do, meant that perhaps we didn't have all of that in place as quickly as we would have liked. But there was never any desire from anyone from the administration or from my part as the council, as the committee chairman, to not have those guardrails. I would not have supported this program if it involved warrantless surveillance of Athens residents. I would not have supported this if it was being used instead of the deployment of officers, if it was going to reduce the workforce or the ability of the Athens Police Department to use the police force that we already have. Or if no guardrails were being considered, if there was any sign of hesitancy or refusal by the City Safety Services Director or the Chief of Police to listen to the kind of guardrails that I've received from many residents in emails, then I would be very much opposed to moving forward with this. And if the city at this time of a very difficult budget crunch, if we had to pay for this project, I would be very much questioning the need or value for that. But none of this is the case. The ACLU takes a position on drones projects like this. They support their employment by local police forces if you put the right protections in place. And I think that's a critical part of this conversation. A city like Athens can put the right protections and guardrails in place. And I think that's an important part of what this ordinance we're looking at specifically right now does. Does it go far enough? I don't know, and I'm certainly willing to hear from other members of council, the public, and the administration on other guardrails we could add, such as annual reauthorization of the use of the drone by council following public review of drone activities. Drone flight logs shared monthly with council and made available to the public. I would be very open to having a conversation about that. Documentation provided to council to demonstrate the destruction of footage. Many of these are suggestions that have come from people in the community, and I think they're all very good. Deadlines for the Athens Police Department to produce the policy documents outlined in this ordinance and set specific requirements of things that we want to see in those policy guidelines, not just wait for the Athens Police Department to set those guidelines themselves. I have no doubt that Chief Magruder would be very much open to that. Or a specific requirement for council to approve any ongoing budget for the program beyond the end of the grant. We are not tied into continuing to fund this project beyond the 2 years. If after 2 years, council decides we can't afford this project, we just turn the drone off. It's gone. We don't have to use it anymore. And if a majority of the council does not want to support this project, and I have no doubt the APD will continue to provide the high level of support to the city that it always continues to do. And so with that, I hand it over to the administration if there's anything that you want to say.
I would, because I have not received any emails directly from anyone, but I have been certainly tracking some of the issues, the concerns that have been received by council members. I would add, I'm hearing from you, Councilmember Isherwood, and I've heard it from others, that this is all kind of just around our Athens Police Department safety, using it as a safety tool, something that we can use. It's also usable with the fire department. We've had 2 losses of life in the Hocking River here in Athens, and with having a piece of equipment such as this to deploy quickly under our control, because this would be operated by the police department and or the fire department in collaboration, to be able to, one, be at the river much more quickly to identify, any person who may have gone into the Hocking River, in particular during high water events. It can also be used to stretch a tag line across the river to have a high line to help with the operations of our fire department. I'd also like to add to the conversation, there are 3 incidents that have happened over the course of the past several months to where either a drone was used effectively in making sure that a scene was safe. Back on August 7th of 2025, officers responded to a shooting in Beasley Mills here in the city of Athens. They were able to work with the sheriff's department, but it's not as smooth as just calling them up going, hey, we could use your help. Because there has to be a police officer, an Athens police officer, along with the sheriff's department, to be the ones to see what is going on inside Beasley Mills. The information that we were receiving at the police department was that there were explosives as well inside that building. The drone was the right tool to use to where it was only turned on when it got into the building and navigated its way around to make sure that the building was in fact safe. There were no explosives. Unfortunately, the individual who had called in the threats had terminated their own life, which again was identified via the drone. The second incident was on February 10th of this year, where on Columbus Road down by New to You, 2 officers were called for a total of 4 units on shift to a domestic violence issue. But there was also another issue that was taking place in another part of the city, to where had we had a drone, this was an individual who was fleeing law enforcement on a bicycle, and had we had a drone, it would have been much more easy to track that individual, but instead the individual evaded the police department. The last issue was one that happened on the 9th of February, and that was a 12-year-old that was lost up in Sells Park, or Sells Park / Stroud's Run, and again, a drone to get there in a timely manner to help look for this individual at night that was up there and clearly lost and was yet to be found. A drone would have been an ideal unit in a case like that. We also have an MOU with the Bailey's Trail System / ORCA, the Outdoor Recreation Council of Appalachia. The skill sets of our fire department, as well as our police department, with technical skills, high-angle rope, close-in entrapment, or whatever, are skills that actually work well with some of the more difficult terrain in the Bailey's Trail System. And for the city, if there is an injured rider or trail runner or something of that nature up in the Baileys, or maybe someone who has gone off trail accidentally and is up there fighting for their own life, a drone, again, would be an ideal tool to help search for that person up in our level of responsibility in the Baileys, along with the volunteer fire departments in that area that don't have a drone. So a tool like this would be critical. I know there's been some conversations again about the drone with the camera on or the camera off or things of that nature. This particular drone in particular, even when the camera is not on but it is going from point A to point B, the camera angle is at a 15-degree vertical elevation or upward direction. So it is not aimed straight ahead. It is instead at an upward trajectory, the camera angle anyway, to where it's not able to see. But we have the ability to control and put guardrails on this piece of equipment, which in a lot of ways, when there are emergencies going on in the city that require more people power than we currently have, or special situations that take place in every community, to be able to use a tool such as this would be an effective way of using newer technologies that exist and that we have the opportunity to take advantage of through the Ohio Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You've touched on the intended uses of this, and we're aware that the public has some also concerns that you've alluded to, and this really centers on the issue of public trust and the fact that we would be entrusting our police force, our firefighters, with responsible use of this. And I just wanted to, before we move to public opportunity for comment and question, to ask if you have any additional thoughts about what kind of safeguards we will intend to put in place.
Well, you have the legislation in front of you for the unmanned aerial system, which we currently don't have in our code. So this is the starting point for making sure that we have policies in place in terms of retention of data, the use of the UAS, prohibited uses. There's been, I know, a lot of conversation about shared data. With this system, the plan is not to be sharing with other law enforcement agencies. We would be using this for city police and fire business in the city of Athens. Again, that's something that we can continue to weave into the legislation, the drone draft that all of you have, are the unmanned aerial systems. But you have the entire policy at this point in time on an area that we don't have policy currently, and asking council to consider this for first reading and moving it forward.
Thank you. With that in mind, I would like to highlight some of the language from this proposed policy, which is about amending Athens City Code Title III to add a section on advanced technology and civil liberties. The purpose and intent of the city would be to recognize that advanced technologies, including unmanned aerial systems, UASs, or body-worn cameras and automated license plate readers, are powerful tools for public safety. To ensure these tools are used in a manner consistent with the First Amendment and Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and the Ohio Constitution, the police department shall maintain a comprehensive advanced technology usage policy. That includes a policy mandate in which the chief of police, with approval from the service safety director, shall develop and maintain a publicly accessible policy for any advanced surveillance or data gathering technology used by the department. This policy must be reviewed annually. Minimum policy requirements include a warrant, strict adherence to Ohio laws requiring a search warrant for surveillance of private property, except in exigent circumstances, such as an active pursuit or search and rescue, protection of protected activity, a prohibition on using technology to monitor or record individuals solely for exercising their First Amendment rights, such as peaceful protests or religious gatherings. As the mayor referenced, data retention and purge, specific timelines for data retention and deletion. Data not identified as evidence in a criminal or internal investigation shall be purged within a period not to exceed 90 days. Access controls, restrictions ensuring that only authorized personnel with documented law enforcement purposes may access captured data. And biometric restriction, a prohibition on the use of facial recognition or other biometric matching software in conjunction with city-operated cameras without a specific court order. Those are some of the examples of the policy pieces that would be that are proposed at this point. And now, to move to comment and question opportunity for the public, I'd like to clarify again that we are talking about this in 3 phases, and right now we're talking about the intended safety uses and privacy concerns. During City Council committee meetings, members of the public are invited to ask questions or share comments about each agenda item at the appropriate time. These comments help bring forward perspectives, raise concerns, and share information to support the committee's work. Some questions, especially simple clarifying questions, may be answered during the committee meeting if information is readily available. Other questions may require some additional research, coordination with staff, or follow-up after the meeting. To support follow-up, public comments and questions should include the speaker's name and contact information. This information may be shared verbally during the meeting and or written on the sign-in sheet. And the sign-in sheet is at the podium. We would ask each person to clearly print their name and address. It would be helpful for you to then identify whether you are speaking on your own behalf or on behalf of an organization, and you'll each be given 3 minutes to speak. The intention is to bring forward new information and perspectives, and generally for each of these 3 phases of this drone discussion, first with the privacy and civil liberties piece, then with the actual grant opportunity and funding pieces, we'll shoot for 15 minutes, but I will be checking in to figure out about how many people in the audience seem to want to speak to each topic, and I would appreciate just everyone maintaining a respectful tone, recognizing that we're here to try and make informed decisions, and we appreciate you for being here. With that, can I just see a show of hands for people in the public who want to speak on the privacy concerns related to this matter? Just to get a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, some of you may end up hearing something said by someone who speaks before you and may not feel the need to repeat that, which is just fine. But if we could have the first person who's interested in approaching the podium, go ahead and do so and prepare to fill out the sign-in sheet there. It's just a quick name. Anyone may be the first speaker. And I'll reiterate the instructions for each speaker since it's a lot to keep in mind. But who might be the first person from the public to share a comment or question, perspective on the issue of privacy and drones? Yes. And if you would share your name.
My name is Brenda Searcy.
Your address, and if you're representing yourself or an organization.
I'm representing myself.
Okay.
And I live on the west side on Hanlon, which is my new address. So I am concerned about civil liberties implications. We don't live in the world we lived in 15 months ago. We just don't. And guardrails are not followed in the world that we're living in right now. I mean, we've all seen that. I'm not talking about the city of Athens, of course, and necessarily, as far as I know. But, and we appreciate y'all's work on behalf of the city. We appreciate safety. But people are terrified, and people in our town who contribute mightily to our social, cultural, educational, financial well-being, do not all have the status of U.S. citizen that makes me less terrified than they are, right? There's a lot of people here that are on temporary statuses, et cetera, and they're terrified. As I'm terrified for them. Just in the news this week, Mark Zuckerberg is saying, hey, let's release our facial recognition glasses for everyone to use because the protesters are busy protesting all the violations of our civil liberties that are happening, the disregard of the laws that is happening in our broader society. And, I don't think we can control this Pandora, right? So I think we don't play with that if we are concerned. The laws, the case law that tells us when is it a Fourth Amendment search? When is due process being violated? These laws were written, many of them, these cases established precedent. I'm thinking particularly of the Fourth Amendment search issue concerning fingerprints. I'm 62. Those laws were written the decade of my birth. And the case law that says, hey, you know what, we just use these for identification, occasionally for evidence, and it's not an unreasonable search if it's subsequent to a lawful arrest. But back in that day, and still the law says this, if you're not guilty, if the prosecutor decides not to prosecute you, you ask for your fingerprints back and you get them back because they're on a card. That's how they were in 1968 when that case came down. They said, this is not an unreasonable search. Where they are now is as soon as you're charged wrongfully or rightfully, they're everywhere. And people who are not following those guardrails that are far from the city of Athens will have access to those. It's just, it's happening, y'all. We see it in the news every day. First Amendment, all those amendments. Our laws are not ready for this. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate everyone who intends to speak. If we can have the second person go ahead and we'll have you in the hat go third then, if that's all right. But we typically don't encourage applause between speakers, not because we don't appreciate the comments, but because we don't want to create an imbalance where some people feel like they're being supported. We want everyone to feel like they can speak their mind freely here. So although I appreciate the display of applause for well-stated comments, we'll try and keep this neutral from an audience reaction perspective, and we'll go ahead and proceed by having our second speaker on this topic begin by sharing your name, your address, and whether or not you're speaking just on behalf of yourself or an organization.
Thank you, Council, Mayor. My name is Ben. I'm a resident of the 3rd Ward on Spring Street, and I'm here on behalf of myself. So I'm here tonight to voice my strong opposition to the city accepting the Drones for First Responders grant. The Drones for First Responders grant would directly violate the Fourth Amendment rights of the residents of the city of Athens with warrantless recordings during flyovers of private property to and from crime scenes. I understand the camera should be tilted up, but it is on a gimbal on all 3 of the drones that are potentially a pick. So they can be tilted right back down. It's not fixed. The program would represent a major step in the direction of a constant law enforcement surveillance. It is likely that this data will fall into the hands of federal law enforcement agencies such as ICE and DHS. And in fact, this would be mandated if Ohio House Bill 26 is passed, which would require us to share that information with them, regardless of what policies you guys put forth. And even if it's not, the city of Athens likely already shares similar data through the use of flock safety automated license plate readers, a pattern that is sure to continue without intervention from the city council. Flock maintains something in their contract allowing them to, at their discretion, share with any law enforcement agency that they deem necessary. So, I want to stress this is not a typical manually piloted drone. This program from the state of Ohio is managed by a company called Skyfire AI. These will be partially autonomous AI-enabled drones, partially managed by a private company, not 100% managed by the city of Athens. The best time to defend your privacy is before you lose it. I urge the Athens City Council to vote against the Drones for First Responders grant for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. And if we could have the next speaker go ahead and sign in at the sign-in sheet. And once you're ready, please share your name, your address, and if you're representing yourself or an organization.
My name is Tyler Woodbridge, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself. My residence is 73 Maplewood Drive. Mr. Mayor, right and honorable members of the council, whereas I appreciate the public safety intent behind the language, whereas I appreciate and trust all of you for the exemplary work that you've done in our town, I love living here, right? I love the community that I'm building. I love my neighbors. And I have love for all of you. Now, there's people out there that don't have that same kind of love, that same kind of patience, that same kind of respect for the law, and that same kind of respect for our disadvantaged minority communities, for our disadvantaged LGBTQIA+ communities, for our neighbors, our friends, and our colleagues. Now, as much as I trust you, I do not trust that the federal government won't find a way to commandeer our surveillance technology for nefarious purposes of family separation, of deporting U.S. citizens, of perhaps bringing harm to Athens citizens like they did to Renee Good, like they did to Alex Preddy, like they did to Keith Porter Jr., that they are doing every day that we sit back and allow it to happen. Now, again, I trust you to make the right decisions. While I'm asking for, as a citizen that has an investment, that does not want to see my neighbors, that does not want to see my 7-year-old daughter's best friend taken away by the federal government, I implore you to please make sure that language is in place, that provisions are in place to prevent any higher level of government from using our technology to bring harm to our neighbors. I cede my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Could we have the next person who wishes to speak on the topic of privacy or civil liberties approach the podium, fill out the sign-in sheet, and when you're ready, please share your name, address, and if you are representing yourself or an organization.
This will be really short. I'm Mizan Ali. I live on the east side and I'm representing myself. I just want to put it out there that if current administration is interested in public trust, I don't think I would have seen the drone that you have at 2 nonviolent protests already. That's all.
Could we have the next person who wishes to speak on the topic approach the podium, complete the sign-in sheet so that we have your contact information, and when you're ready, share your name, your address, and let us know if you are representing yourself or an organization.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Jeff Kuhn. I live over on May Avenue, and I'm here representing myself. And, I've been planning to come to the City Council to talk about the use of automatic license plate reading cameras. But as we can see, the issue's gotten bigger and talking more about these drones. But really what we're talking about is not the issue of the drone in and of itself, but the contracts with the companies that we agree with and work with to facilitate this technology, right? So the issue is not how our law enforcement uses this technology, but the contracts signed with companies such as Flock, Axon, and Skyfire AI, whose software runs these drones, right? So what they do with our data and how we move through the city is really the issue at hand. So my question for City Council is how much are you aware of what the city agreed to in just our agreement with Flock, for example? So, we can keep, they can keep our data for up to 30 days. Now, in New Hampshire state law, for example, they have to delete it after 3 minutes, right? So 30 days is egregious. And Flock also has, our month to do whatever they want with our data, right? So especially when they have a contract that gives them, quote, royalty-free, irrevocable, worldwide license to use the customer data. So this is troubling when, as 404 Media reports, Flock contracts database tagging to gig workers outside the United States. Recently, a data breach that exposed 76 million license plate searches out onto the internet. And they can give our data over to any law enforcement agency that they wish to, because, again, the contract says they can do whatever they want with it. So what are we going to do there? Because when they share that data, a law enforcement agency can just simply put in a request for that data. All Flocks requires is a request. So I can go in, say, protest as my reason for searching that data, and cast a surveillance dragnet, right? That's our issue. Contractually, that's what we've agreed to. That's the problem. Now the city wants to add to this rather cavalier data grab by Flock on where we go and when, drones that can fly over our homes, our houses, our yards, and other private spaces, right? So why can we afford tools that risk fracturing our community, but not like a DEIA coordinator who brings our community together? Now, I understand we're not paying for this right now, but we will, right? So I think we can do better than this corporate and federal law enforcement overreach, right? Because again, it's not what our local law enforcement does with this data, but how the companies behind it share it. So that's why I encourage the city to adopt a what's called community control or police surveillance model, right? So this model has been used across the country, and it gives us, the community, a chance to help you make decisions on how this data gets used, how it gets shared, and invariably write the contracts that go into these agreements. So, I think this will allow us to basically level the playing field with these companies, and so we can dictate what we want to do on our terms. So I've lived in Athens 16 years and would assert that APD and OUPD have done commendable work in community policing. However, the issue here is that the tech can enable any law enforcement agency to have real-time surveillance on the people of Athens. That's not community policing, that's a police state. So, and I encourage people here tonight to consider the property tax vote a referendum on this AI surveillance. If these plans move forward, I'm voting no on the property tax increase. I encourage other people to do the same. My concern with these tools and the corporations behind them is they'll gladly hand their data over to anybody who asks for it, right? Including agencies who are diametrically opposed to what Athens believes in, including all the resolutions we passed to protect vulnerable populations. And it's certain to drive a wedge between our community and the police forces that are sworn to serve and protect us. Thanks.
All right, if we could have our next speaker. A quick clarifying question then.
Mr. Kuhn, you mentioned community control something, and I couldn't write quick enough. Could you reiterate that, please?
I brought a flyer.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Control over, please. Okay.
Member Swank, could you reiterate the question you asked and the response that you received?
Oh, yeah. Mr. Kuhn was speaking about community control over police surveillance, and he got it out quicker than I could write it. And I just wanted, and he provided us a flyer.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
All right, if we could move on to our next speaker, and if you've signed in, you could share your name, your address, and whether you're representing yourself or an organization.
Badger Johnson, 35 Woodward Avenue, representing myself. I love drones. Obviously, it's not representative of how I feel about drones in general. I was just visiting some friends in Minneapolis, not related to what ICE is doing or the protests thereof, but some of my friends were at ICE protests, as tens of thousands of other people were. And this short-statured woman, well-intentioned, white liberal urban person, she's like filming ICE dragging a family out of their car and leaving it in the middle of the road. And this guy about my size turns around and looks at them and is like, "Oh, hi, Margaret." And my friend's like, "How do they know what my name is?" And they've got this body cam with facial recognition technology live pulling up where she lives. They follow her home, not making this up. That kind of thing scares the pants off of me. So I appreciate Michael, just articulating the civil libertarian position on this. It's not that I'm like super terrified of the Athens PD having it. I would rather it be like just firefighters and, the EMS people. But I think that other speakers here have made it abundantly clear with like their better research on the issue, like how the data can and will get back to people that we wouldn't necessarily want it to get to. And so as tempting as it is to say yes to getting more expertise and more hardware, I would just say no thank you. this is not the way that Athens would want to do that. And also, like, I saw a map somewhere of like the towns that were thinking about it, and they all seem like blue cities, not a whole lot of like red cities. Maybe I was misinformed with the map that I saw, but that made me nervous too, with like all the ice surges in districts that President Trump was not too fond of for whatever reason. So yeah, I cede my time. Thanks.
We could have the next speaker on the topic of privacy or civil liberties approach the podium and fill out the sign-in sheet. You can go next if you would like, and we'll have you, once you've signed in, share your name, address, and let us know if you are speaking on behalf of yourself or an organization. And you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Spencer Singer, and I live at 1 Terrace Drive in Athens. Yeah, the privacy implications for this is really scary. As people previously already said, this drone has the capability of, and the data this drone has, this drone has the capability of. The data that this drone is capable of capturing and sharing can be shared with multiple agencies. And with everything going on, that's a really scary idea. But also, the wording when it comes to the use of this drone, especially the exigent circumstances that allow this drone to be used on private property without a warrant, is really vague and should be clarified and specified more. And yeah, that's my main point. I cede my time.
Thank you. I'd like to check in to see, please go ahead and approach the podium. Yes. Do we have anyone else who intends to speak specifically on the topic of the privacy and civil liberties, just to get a count? Okay, we've got 2 more folks, and then I do understand that these topics are interrelated. My intention is to have each one of us silence our cell phones if we have the opportunity, and that after we've covered all 3 aspects of this drone discussion, then we'll have council members discuss moving each one potentially to regular session or through vote. But right now, I'm anticipating just 3 more speakers on the topic of privacy and civil liberties, maybe 4, possibly.
Question, will there be time to speak to the financial implications of this?
Yes, the 3 phases will be the civil liberties piece, the financial piece, and the project grant itself, yes. And please just continue to listen to one another. If you feel like the points that you intended to make have already been shared, then there will be another opportunity to potentially add your thoughts during other phases of this drone discussion. If we could have our next speaker introduce yourself, let us know where you live, and if you are representing yourself or an organization, then we'll begin your 3 minutes.
Okay, my name's Alex, and I'm representing myself, and I live in Millfield, 9100 Oregon Ridge Road. And I am against the proposal for Athens' participation in the Drones for First Responders pilot program. I believe the use of this technology is not only unnecessary, but unethical and a flagrant use of our taxpayer money to infringe on our civil liberties. Under the Privacy Act of 1974, we have the right to individual privacy from the misuse of federal records and actions. The use of technologies such as drones in a box, which this program utilizes, and the automated license plate readers, which flock cameras are, have quickly been using legal loopholes to overpromise community safety rather than weigh the grave implications of sacrificing our basic rights of privacy. The AI programs that exist within these pieces of equipment are only as good as the people who program them. In a 2025 MIT Media Lab found that commercial facial recognition systems misidentified Black women 33.2% of the time more times, 33.2% more times than compared to white men, meaning that these AI systems will not only reproduce but efficiently exacerbate harm and power imbalances we already see present in our society. This endangers our already marginalized community members as well. And to reiterate from many people who have said, a lot of the contracts from these companies have like grave implications that cannot be safeguarded just by the words of council members, and that I really encourage the council to invest in proven services that help the well-being of our community. Thank you.
If we could have our next speaker on the topic of privacy or civil liberties approach the podium, sign in so that we have your contact information, and introduce yourself. We would love to have you share your name, your address, and if you are speaking on behalf of yourself or an organization.
Sorry, I'm a slow writer. My name is Sarah Jones. I live at 15 Nottingham Drive in Athens off of Richland. I'm speaking for myself. This is my 8th year in Athens. It is the community that I always dreamed of being a part of. And I think foolishly thought that a proposal like this would not infiltrate the community that I now call home. Clearly I was wrong. A couple points. Citing the ACLU's support for drones is, for lack of a better term, rich. If we've learned anything from national events as of late related to privacy and surveillance, it's that the support is precarious at best. Second, the sheer number of disclaimers provided is, I believe, itself a disturbing indication of the fact that this proposal may be being pushed through, which the committee does not want, or excuse me, community does not want. I'll say that again because I messed it up. The sheer number of disclaimers provided is itself, I believe, a disturbing indication of the fact that council may be trying to push through a proposal that the community does not want. As a fellow Leadership Athens County alum, as an Ohio Comms alum, and as residents of the Athens community, all of you, I believe no better than to put this forth. You can't protect us from the many consequences, so protect us now. I see my time. Thank you.
Would you like to come forward now? And do we have anyone else who intends to speak on this topic after? Okay, one more person after this, and then we'll move to the grant specifics. And if you could introduce yourself, sharing your name, your place of residence, and if you're speaking on behalf of yourself or an organization.
Okay, I'm just finishing this. My name is Seth. I live in 15 South Schaefer Street, and just for myself, speaking for myself, I want to come here today to speak of me being against the bill for a couple of reasons, but I'll try to keep it short to 3 reasons. One is because the money that is going to the police, and I personally don't like that because I don't have trust in them because of the systemic structure of the police is that of like ICE and many other structures that are very oppressive and violent and about gentrifying communities all around and making people paranoid. And I see this drone bill as making people very paranoid and very violating their civil rights, if that makes sense. Another reason is I really do believe with money, because I've researched that it's $3,100, I believe, that can go to people who are struggling with poverty, for example, instead of giving it to the police. And that's another reason why I'm against this, because I feel that in order to make a community safe, to exercise safety, is to really confront the biggest problems that we see, which is poverty, which is pollution, or gentrification. I don't know how much gentrification there is in Athens County. I personally don't know. But I know that poverty is a very big issue. And I think this bill is not confronting that issue. It's more of increasing that issue. And I think that, excuse me, I think the right thing to do is to be against this bill and to use abilities to help people in ways that we all know how. And that's all I had to say.
Thank you. I believe we have one more identified speaker, and on the topic of privacy and civil liberties. Okay, two more, and then we'll need to move on to allow the committee to discuss the topic. And I'll let committee members know that if you have heard questions or comments shared by the public that you have a clarifying point of information to include in your own comments, you're welcome to do so. And if we could have our next speaker share your name, your address, and if you're speaking on behalf of yourself or an organization.
Hi, my name is Shelley. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. I live on Pomeroy Road. I'll try to be quick, but I have to first explain that when we moved here, again, dream come true, so happy, love this space in our place, and I would delight in my youngest child's observations of what I call Athens magic. And it's whenever just some random person is just kind and does something really nice happens because another one of our community members is just going out of their way to be kind and helpful. And we had conversations about, do you think nice people move here, or do you think this place makes them nice? And we think both. We think nice people move here because nice people live here. And I'd like for us to be able to think differently about how to keep our community safe, that we don't need to operate like an urban area. This is a different place, and we should have different solutions. We should rely on each other. We don't need this kind of overreach to keep us safe. We have each other for that. And I think that is overlooked. Our uniqueness is not being utilized to solve this concern. I think we're applying a big city problem to a small town situation. And frankly, it makes me feel unsafe. I came here because it makes me feel safe to be here. I stay here because it makes me feel safe to be here. But this kind of proposal does not make me feel safe. Thank you.
If we could have our last speaker on the topic of privacy, and again, I do understand that depending on how these topics advance from committee to regular session, there would be additional opportunities to discuss the privacy elements and each other element during regular session. But we'll have our last speaker on this topic share their name, address, and let us know if you are representing yourself or an organization.
Yeah, my name's Austin Markwell. I'm representing myself, and I live on 15 Nottingham Drive. Everybody's kind of already said what they think about this, and I'm not going to add to that. I come to this as a technology professional, and I just think I should propose some questions that if council can't answer, then they probably shouldn't move forward with that. First of all, when we say that we own the data, like that we can only access that, is that for real? Are we hosting the data? Do we have access to the servers? Where are we hosting those servers? Then that itself is a cost that we're going to have to run. If it's on the cloud, what cloud? Is it AWS? Is it Azure? What's the system? Is it multi-tenant? Is it single tenant? If it's multi-tenant, then we're going to be sharing this data with all the other people on this tenant. What kind of encryption? Is it encrypted at rest? Is it encrypted at passing? Just these type of things. If you don't know the answers to those questions, then maybe we should move forward with this. Thank you.
All right, we would typically at this time move directly to committee, but because we typically do have questions asked that sometimes result in information being immediately available to share, I would like to invite the mayor to respond to any clarifying questions that you heard before I bring it back to committee.
Again, as I've been told, there are things that we couldn't put in place to where we're controlling that data as it comes in. I like the question that was raised earlier, the comment that was raised earlier about the contracts, that we need to scour through those contracts to make sure that there are certainly additional guardrails, not even guardrails, just policy for us, for the city of Athens with this technology. Or the license plate readers, or with our body-worn cameras. We have policy in place already. We have for quite some time about BWCs, body-worn cameras. Again, I appreciate the questions and the comments that were raised today.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to announce the opportunity for public comment on the topic of privacy for this committee agenda item closed, and we'll now move to the committee of the whole for any questions, comments from council members who are all part of the committee of the whole, starting with Member Wood.
Yeah, thank you all for coming and sharing your concerns. I obviously share them. I think a number of folks really spoke my mind on this. Brenda's point about the guardrails. The not being followed, whether we like it or not, I thought was a very good one. And as Ben mentioned, HB 26 brings up that they can just supersede whatever we do. We've witnessed that. We lost the bag ordinance pretty quickly. That those bills will require us to do whatever the feds want. It's also I thank you, Sarah, for noting that it's rich, that the ACLU said they support it, because it's just not accurate. It's a misrepresentation of their position. I met with them today. I don't think anybody else here has yet, but it's pretty clear they're not keen either. So I think using that as a defense is not an appropriate representation of their position. I'll add that I have seen Terminator, and Skynet is the villain. Nice try, Skyfire. Like, this is just, as Jeff said, I respect and appreciate our local folks a lot. This is not about them. This is about the fact that whatever we do as far as concerns of privacy here are going to be ripped right out. It doesn't matter what we pass. They will go away. And so the safest thing, as somebody said, is just not to let it in. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So very shortly, it's nice that we're going to do the first part, and we're going to all vote, for more protections. But they're not going to stand up for more than 15 minutes, and it's a farce, the process. Also, I'll add that finally, as was mentioned by the last speaker, sorry I missed your name. We can't answer these questions. Trying to ram this through after we already had one no vote on an emergency basis does not indicate a high level of trust that will come back and appropriately handle any concerns that come up. So for those reasons, I think the privacy concerns remain very high.
Thank you, Member Wood. Member Stazer.
I'll be quick. So I haven't been on council for very long, but over the weekend I got more emails and more communications from my constituents than I ever thought I would get on any policy that was ever brought before this committee, and none of them were supportive of the drone program. And I'm worried a little bit about it being used, for surveillance. Similar, there was I don't know if anybody read this, but of course the sheriff's department has a drone. And there was an article in OUB back on July 31st, 2025. And one of the sheriff's deputies was talking about, that they're, I'm going to paraphrase here, but the quote's in here if you want to go find it, basically using the drone. They see somebody out walking late at night or whatever, and they can use they find the drone finds this person, and then they can send somebody to make contact and, determine if this person is up to no good. I'm against the possibility of using it as surveillance. I like the part about it being used by the fire department to go and see if there's, somebody in a house that's on fire. I like the idea of it being used to help somebody in the hawking, but I'm concerned about the law enforcement use of the drone.
Thank you, Member Stazer. Member Clodfelder.
Like Member Stacer, my email has been flooded with comments about this, or relatively flooded. I probably have gotten more while I've been in this meeting, but we can't check email while we're in the meeting. But at last count, and I really might have messed up the count right before the meeting because I had a whole new surge of them, I believe I had 17 messages against this program and 0 for. And some of the 17 came from members of the community that I know and I really, really respect, and they sent very thoughtful, multi-paragraph emails. They researched them. One of the people's here. At least a dozen of them, of those 17, referenced concern that somehow ICE would get a hold of this information. And I share that concern. I can't believe what has happened in Minneapolis. And even in a small town in Indiana where my father lives, they've yanked Mexicans out of the community. So, yeah, so it was 17 to 0 in my email account.
Thank you, Member Clodfelder. Additional members of the Committee of the Whole? Member Thomas.
I don't think I need to repeat a lot of what we've already had stated tonight very clearly and well. As we're talking about the policy piece, if we want to put this in the books to have safety nets in there, we could go ahead and do that with no real impact on the drones being adopted at all. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But as everyone has stated, I haven't heard a single person want these or think these are a good idea. I've heard a lot of people being against them. And while I fully trust Chief Magruder's intent and idea and positivity that he could use these for safety and for efficiency, I have zero trust of the state agencies or federal agencies. We're seeing what they're doing right now. We're seeing them superseding power left and right. They're tracking down women using license plate readers. So I can't see any positives coming out of this should they decide to turn their direction to Southeast Ohio. And, I think, I see the things listed in the policy, and I think if we brought these forward now versus, when this technology came out, would we even adopt these? And I think knowing where we are now in the world, I don't think we'd even adopt these. I think we would have people saying we don't want, the license plate readers. We don't want the cameras on traffic lights, sensing stop and go. I think we'd restrict a lot more camera work and a lot more technology in our government if we really saw where we were going to go a la 1984. So that's really about all I have to say on it.
We have any other comments? Member Swank.
Certainly appreciate all the comments today and don't want to minimize any of those. But unfortunately, I think one of our local media outlets has done this community a great disservice. And I will quote, Athens, Ohio. Athens' participation in a state-paid, city police-controlled drone program for criminal surveillance purposes died in committee Monday evening. If that isn't an inflammatory opening statement, I don't know what is. And what I have heard in the 14 emails I've received is a lot of passionate opinion, much of it based on misinformation. Mr. Coons provided us with a document. Is it Coon, right? Not plural. With the document today. I must apologize. I did not read this. because I wanted to listen to what was happening here. But in a quick glance in the break here, and what Mr. I believe it was Woodward said, that the language of the ordinance is what's very important, is the direction I would like to go. No matter what we write today, technology will be different tomorrow. I was in an energy conference last week, and AI was the top topic of conversation at an energy conference. But what we do today, technology will be different tomorrow. And that's the beauty of a city code of ordinances. They can be changed and they can be updated. This program, if I can outline it, was open to the entire state of Ohio. Program development September, October 2025. Call for participation November of 25. Municipalities selected in 2026. Oh, and by the way, it is a good balance between red and blue cities that were picked. March 2026, drone system procurement and training, and June 2026, operation begins. Whatever we adopt or don't adopt in terms of policy doesn't have to be done tonight, next Monday, or the following Monday. In fact, it doesn't even be done in March. And I heard from some people today that seem to have some expertise in this area. And I would think a community that values its community resources, experiences, and intelligence would involve those folks and help shaping this policy. And I looked at Mr. Kuhn, and I think he said, give me a call. And I think we can do that. But before we even start this, if we are going to start this in June, we have a lot of opportunity to make sure whatever data we can secure is secure, what policies are in place, what policies need to be in place to make people comfortable, and to remember, unlike this first sentence, criminal surveillance, this is primarily a program directed at emergency response. And I think that's gotten lost in the conversation. And I'm afraid anybody that didn't get past, and I'm not implying anybody in this room, but anybody that didn't get past the first sentence of this article didn't get the whole picture.
Thank you, Member Swank. Any other comments or questions from council members on the topic of the privacy or civil liberties policy? All right. We're going to move on to the second subtopic. We'll be doing votes at the end after we discuss all three. The subtopic 2 is the grant agreement itself. And this, if supported by council, would move on through Ordinance 19-26. And I'm just going to highlight, whereas ODOT has established a Drones for First Responders pilot program, DFR, as provided by Section 755.20 of the General Assembly, and whereas the City of Athens Police Department has been selected as a participant in the DFR, and whereas the grant is 100% funded, there is no local match, and ODOT will reimburse the City of Athens the full cost of the unmanned aircraft system, all required training, and any FAA approvals. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Athens, Ohio, that Athens City Council hereby authorizes the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement with the State of Ohio, Ohio Department of Transportation for Drones for First Responders program, a copy of which is attached. This ordinance shall be an emergency measure necessary for the preservation of health, welfare, and safety of the residents of Ohio. And we did previously have the thought that we had to have a firm response on acceptance into this grant program by the 17th. And the primary condition that has changed since this was discussed by the City and Safety Services Committee is that we've learned that that date is more flexible than we originally intended, which is why it's up for discussion again tonight. So with that framing, I would like to invite Member Isherwood for any additional comment, and then we'll move to the administration, public, and back to the committee of the whole.
No, other than, again, the City of Athens Police Department applied for this grant opportunity and was very much in the mind of thinking, of a first responder program, and that was the idea. And and I hear all the concerns that people are raising on the other issues, and I certainly don't ignore them. But that was the intent.
I would add that in addition to the deadline for accepting participation for the City of Athens in this program, the implications for our timing would be that if council votes in committee this evening to advance this to regular session, then there would be a typical 3-reading proposed process, but there would be the opportunity for suspension of the rules, which would likely be requested in order to let the state know whether we're accepting this opportunity or not. Mr. Mayor, do you have anything to add on behalf of the administration about the grant program itself?
No, not really.
And now we'll open for public comment to anything about understanding, questions, comments, commentary about this grant program, its reimbursement components. Yes, and if you'd approach the podium and share your name, and if you've already signed in once,
so I don't have to sign it again?
you could just let us reintroduce yourself. As long as we have your contact information, we'll find it on the sign-in sheet. And remind us if you're representing yourself or an organization.
Myself, my name's Ben. I live on 3 Spring Street. My question is, by accepting the grant, what are the terms and conditions that the city is agreeing to? Do you know them? Are they listed somewhere? Because I looked on the state of Ohio's website for this grant. I found like a 3-page PowerPoint presentation that tells you what drones you can get. But actual terms and conditions, by accepting it, I would like to know what you're signing up for before you sign up for it. That's all.
If we could have additional members of the public who have questions or comments about the grant program itself, terms, conditions, et cetera, information to offer or questions to pose, now would be an appropriate time. Yes, please come forward. And once at the podium, if you could sign in. Be sure to include contact information so that we can follow up with you if necessary. And then we invite you to share your name, your address, and if you're speaking on behalf of yourself or an organization.
Thank you. My name's Mark Isaac. I live on 96 North Schaefer Street. I wasn't really sure where my question would fit in among the 3 categories, so I figured it would just be worth asking it now. But is this a serious problem that people are getting lost on the Baileys? Like, do we have numbers about how many people we've failed to retrieve from a situation like this? And is it a big enough problem to warrant the things that we stand to lose, like our privacy? That was really my only question. I hadn't heard it brought up yet, so I thought it was worth asking.
Thank you. All right. I don't see any other hands indicating question or comment on the topic of the drone grant terms, so I'm going to bring it back to Committee of the Whole. Any comments from council members about the grant program itself? Member Wood.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Lobbyists have spent, I looked this up before I came today, lobbyists have spent approximately $400,000 in lobbying in 2025 in the state of Ohio. Wonder why. The amount of money that is spent on making this happen is there for a reason. It's not going to be free forever, as Andy Stone said. We're going to have to pay things. I think Megan brought that up at the time. The answer was yes, it's paid for now, but not later. And these companies are lobbying because they want the paycheck. They want us to buy into their program and pay them these rich contracts. As many folks have brought up, rather spend it on something else.
Thank you, Member Wood. Any other members of the Committee of the Whole have comment on the topic of the grant itself? Sorry. Apologies.
Oh, that.
All right. That was left over from someone else's time. Okay. All right. Seeing none, the third subtopic is the appropriation itself. And that's just about how we pay for things up front and then get reimbursed. And Member Isherwood, would you like me to read some of the language, or would you like to?
You can go ahead.
All right. So this would be an ordinance amending the 2026 Appropriation Ordinance 120-25 and authorizing the expenditure for drones for first responders program. And Section 1 reads that the 2026 Appropriation Ordinance 120-25 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the sum of $300,000 to Capital Improvement Fund Police 580.20, Transaction Class 500, and increasing the total appropriations by said amount. Section 2 indicates that the Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to expend up to $300,000 from the capital improvements funds for this program. And Section 3 indicates that the auditor is hereby directed to reimburse the capital improvements fund for police upon receipt of said grant funds. This ordinance shall be in full force and effect at the earliest moment permitted by law, and its passage and approval by the mayor. So this third subtopic is really just about the reimbursement pieces, and I would invite Member Sherwood, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Just again, that this is just, we would have to pay for this up front, and then the state would, per the grant, would reimburse us. And that is all we are required to do at this point in time. There is no commitment in the agreement, as I understand it, to pay any more money beyond that, and that's it.
I would add that during our City and Safety Service Committee meeting where this was first discussed, Member Almeida raised the question of what kind of subsequent funds would be required for maintenance afterward, and the Service Safety Director did indicate that we would have thousands of dollars, an unknown specified amount annually that we would likely have to contribute for maintenance and participation, but all of that would be contingent upon the city's review of the effectiveness of the program and whether or not we wanted to continue the investment. So that's, unless there's additional information about the funding implications, then I'll just move on to the mayor for any comment on the appropriations aspect of this itself.
Just to add, because you're talking financials, is that after a 2-year period of time, it would be about 100,000, or not 100,000, it would be about $10,000 annually for just the maintenance warranty for the drones. So just so you're aware that there would be continuing costs. We were anticipating it being much higher than that, although $10,000 is a lot of money to maintain the drones after that 2-year period of time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All right, at this time I'll open public comment on the financing aspects of this drone topic. If we have any members of the public who have questions or comments, please approach the podium and sign in on our sign-in sheet. Then we invite you to introduce yourself, sharing your name, your address, and whether or not you are just representing yourself or an organization. Then we'll begin your 3 minutes.
Council members and Mayor Patterson, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Ari Faber. I live at 23 Meadow Lane, and I am the Executive Director of United Campus Ministry on College Street. I urge you to vote no on the proposed legislation for the drone program. I have already given copies of an email I sent to all council members last night on the civil liberty aspects to this program. Tonight, I'm going to focus on the financial implications for the City of Athens. The City of Athens is currently encouraging employees to retire because we cannot afford the workforce that we already have. Layoffs are being considered. We are facing real budget constraint. At the same time, there is proposed tax increase scheduled for the May ballot. In that context, approving a new drone program, even one that is grant funded for the first 2 years, sends deeply contradictory message. Grant funded does not mean free. I will say it again. Grant funded does not mean free. After the initial 2-year period, the financial responsibility transfers directly to the City of Athens. At that point, we would be responsible for ongoing maintenance, software licensing, data storage, equipment upgrades and replacement cycles, insurance and liability exposure, and training and personnel costs. Drone programs are not one-time purchases. They become recurring operational expenses. Technology evolves quickly, meaning replacement cycles are inevitable. What looks like a $300,000 opportunity today becomes a permanent budget line tomorrow. We are being asked to create infrastructure now and decide how to pay for it later. And if the plan is to discontinue the program after 2 years, that raises another concern. Is it responsible to accept substantial state funds for equipment and infrastructure that we may not sustain? That would mean taxpayer dollars, state and local, will use to build a temporary program without any long-term commitment. Those funds could be directed towards infrastructure, public health, housing stability, education, or a multitude of other things that we actually need. The areas where we already know there are unmet needs. Fiscal stewardship requires discipline. When a city is struggling to maintain staffing levels, when employees are being encouraged to retire to balance the books, and when voters are being asked to approve a tax increase, we must prioritize our core services. Public safety is important, but fiscal credibility is also public safety. Trust in governance depends on consistent messaging and responsible budgeting. If council votes to adopt new surveillance infrastructure while simultaneously asking residents to approve higher taxes and accept staffing reductions, many residents, myself included, will reasonably question whether the city truly lacks funding or is just choosing different priorities. This decision is not just about drones, it is about budget discipline, long-term obligations, and honest financial planning. Before taking on new operational costs, we must stabilize what we already have. For those reasons, I urge you to vote no.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who'd like to comment on subtopic 3, the appropriation and financing? We have 2. If Mr. Delich, okay, thank you for going third. And if you wouldn't mind signing in, as you're already beginning to do, then we'll ask you to introduce yourself with your name, address, and letting us know if you're representing yourself or an organization.
My name is Harmony. I live on South May Street, excuse me. I used to have a job where there was a period 1 month where we got sudden grant funding where we got $200,000 and whoever was giving it to us said, okay, you have 2 weeks to spend it and get all of the things that you spend it in the building or else you owe all of this money back to us. And so what we did as employees is we just started spending this grant money on a bunch of stuff we didn't know how to use and didn't end up using and didn't have the resources to actually properly know how to utilize it to our most advantage. And that's kind of what this feels like from what I have heard tonight and from the information I have received earlier, it kind of just feels like the state is dangling a carrot of grant funding to say, hurry up and spend this on what we want you to spend it on, without having actually the proper infrastructure or equipment or even just staff and employees to know how to properly use it. And so we're going to have this incredibly expensive equipment that we don't really know how to use properly, that we don't even have a good hold on, the information that it will then survey over the community. So I urge the council to consider whether or not they have the capability or the police have the capability to actually utilize the equipment that we will inevitably have to spend more money on to maintain. Because I've seen firsthand the tempting possibilities of an unprepared, grant proposal. And for me personally, I do not feel that the risks to the community privacy is worth the prospect of maybe having something cool that we don't have to pay as much as we wanted for. To me, that's not worth it. Thank you.
Mr. Delich, if you wouldn't mind signing in for us before introducing yourself.
Yes, I'm Rod Delich. I live at 124 Morris Avenue here in the city of Athens. I'm speaking for myself. One thing I'd just like to point out is that the way council works with budget items is there's a $50,000 threshold. So if the administration has a budget item under $50,000, it's their discretion to make the decision to spend that money. Council would never hear about it. It could be in the budget as a line item, but it's not something that council specifically approves like we're going through now. $300,000 expense, accepting the grant, that has to be approved by council. So the decision to continue the program in 2 years is not something that council has any oversight of. So the administration maybe could voluntarily do something, but there's no legal requirement for them to come to council and ask for that money or ask for approval to spend that money. So I think if this moves forward, we need to think about that and think about if there's a way to make sure that there's a review in 2 years that council is involved in somehow. I'm not sure what the legal way to do that would be, but just keep that in mind as, I think, an important detail here.
Thank you. Do we have any other members of the public who would like to speak on the aspect of the appropriation and financing of this program? Yes. Okay.
Hi, again, my name is Spencer. I live at 1 Terrace Drive, and I have a statement and a clarifying question. Although this drone, I'm going to start with my statement first. Although this drone program is practically free for 2 years, and you mentioned in 2 years we can shut down the drone and opt out of paying for this program, I find it hard to believe that those in power will decide to give up this powerful and invasive drone. Even if the money allocated for this program would be better suited to other parts of our community. For example, our homeless population, struggling families, our marginalized communities, and our crumbling infrastructure. I have lived full-time in Athens for a little over a year now, and during that time, my street and neighboring streets have suffered catastrophic infrastructure failures, making access to my street limited or closed for days to weeks at a time. Therefore, I am asking you to vote no now before suffering the consequences later. All right, and my clarifying question is, have you consulted any you mentioned this previously when you were talking about the drone. Have you consulted any wilderness search and rescue professionals and our firefighters about the viability of this drone and the viability of using the rope systems that this drone is apparently capable of, as you mentioned before, especially with the Hocking River example you gave? I see my time. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else who wanted to speak on the topic of appropriations or financing for this? Then I'd like to invite the elected officials to offer any comment or clarifying questions, particularly since this one has financial implications, and either from perhaps the auditor or even the mayor, I believe there may be some misunderstanding about what we can and can't use grant funds for or the general fund for. This, I've heard a couple mention maybe we could use this money to feed people who need it instead, or to enhance our infrastructure. Our funding systems are more complicated than that, and we wouldn't be able to use this grant funding for anything other than that. And I just wanted to invite our elected officials who might have any responses to this. Maybe we'll start with our finance friends. Auditor Hecht.
Thank you. I have two things I wanted to bring up. First, the money we're using for this and would continue to use for this is our capital fund. It's 580, and these are the kinds of purchases, if we were buying it, a vehicle, a salt truck, the kinds of things that we buy out of that fund. It doesn't support any employees or anything like that. It's not part of the general fund where we pay our police and fire and all that. These are for capital. It's capital improvements fund, and that's what these purchases are for. Two, Rob, I didn't understand this $50,000 thing you were talking about, and who pays for that? Mayor, did you want to comment?
I do. I picked up on that as well. What you're referencing, it's actually changed. It's 75,000, maybe 78,000 or something. But it is where we don't have to go out to bid on items for the city or bid on contracts for anything that is less than that amount.
The thing is, we don't have to go out to bid if it's less than that. But council still has to appropriate the money in the budget to pay for it, no matter how much it is. That makes sense? Yeah, I mean, if I need another $5,000 for postage, then I come back to council. It's not a bidding operation or anything like that, so, yeah.
So in response to the public comment that council would not be aware of how much annually the administration was putting toward maintenance and training and that sort of thing after the 2-year period wouldn't be correct because we would be seeing that information and council would have the opportunity to decline?
Yes,
Okay.
they would. It would become part of whoever's budget. And of course, we have detailed reports that people can ask for anytime if they want to know how much we're spending on certain expenses.
Thank you. Do we have any other elected officials who want to comment on the financial aspects of this? Then I'm going to bring it back to the committee of the whole. Council members, Member Swink.
I'm going to go back to Mr. DeLocke's comment. Rob, you're right on. It may be an appropriation of $200,000 in a budget, but a single item like this gets lost in that. And to your point, I think you're absolutely right. I think if this comes forward in an ordinance, there needs to be 2 things in it. Number one, the continuation of the program is contingent upon council approval. And the funding for that continuation is contingent on council approval, much like we have done with the Baileys. Every year, it comes before council. Even though it's in the budget, we still have control. And I thank you for bringing that up, sir, because I know as well as you do in terms of budgets, if it's buried in there, we often find out after the fact. And I think what I'm hearing from from the audience, not really an audience, participants today, is the accountability is very important in this. And thank you for pointing that out. And I would encourage, if this makes it to ordinance, that we include those 2 things in the ordinance. Continuation of the program past the 2-year pilot, and this is a pilot program, is contingent upon council approval. And secondly, the funding for that continuation would also be contingent upon council approval. I think that's a fair request.
All right. Thank you, Member Swank. I do believe that that would relate to the most significant piece, the subtopic of the grant agreement itself, and whether council moves this forward for the Service Safety Director to be able to accept our participation. Do we have any other comments or questions about the financial pieces from Committee of the Whole? All right. Then I believe it's time for council. Oh, Member Wood, did you have something?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, are we going into voting?
About to prepare. My intention is to have us do 3 different voting rounds with a
This is our
first
last
a
chance
motion
to
and a
comment on the program as a whole before.
unless you are. Yeah, I guess this would be the last comment before.
Okay,
Yeah.
I do have some more comments. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one, thank you all so much again for coming and speaking. I also got 25 emails, not a single one for it. Haven't heard anybody say they did have one for it. You all gave up your Tuesday nights hours. I mean, we have to be here. You guys chose to be here, and on short notice, very short notice. So that shows how much you all care, and I really appreciate that. I think I did not get elected to take part in giving up our civil liberties. I did not get elected to take part in adding to the militarization of our police force. I didn't get elected to do any of those things, and I'm not going to turn my back on it now. I think I cannot overstate, if you care about the budget, as Alan always does, I would vote no. If you care about privacy and concerns, I would vote no. If you care about, as these folks have said, passing the budget and passing the asking folks here to vote for a tax increase, I'd vote no. For all those reasons and more, if you're terrified by Badger's story, as I am, I'd vote no. So there's just a litany of reasons that I'll be voting no on all of these, and I hope that my fellow members join me in that.
I think, Member Sherwood, was that
I was going to say, if we vote and there isn't support for 1926, is there any, or 2026, which is to approve the application to the grant, is there any point in voting on the other?
I believe it would be first 1926 for the grant agreement, and if there's no support from council or inadequate support from council to move that to regular session, then the subtopic 3, ordinance 20-26 with the appropriations would be moot, but there may still be interest in discussing the policy privacy piece. So any questions from comments from committee of the whole before I invite a motion and a second and potentially a vote? Member Swank.
Yeah, several things. Member Wood, all due respect, I think your comments are a gross mischaracterization of the program, and if you'll indulge me, the drones program for first responders pilot program was created under Ohio House Bill 96 to support the use of drones by law enforcement, fire departments, and emergency medical services. The program aims to assess how drone technology can improve situational awareness, reduce emergency response time, and enhance public and responder safety. So when I first read that, I wasn't sure what these drones could be used for. You know what, folks? In all seriousness, we have rules here. Would you please put down the signs? I know you have your rights of first expression, but this is not a football game or supporting teams or whatever.
It's a constitutional game for people to be able to hold it up,
That was-
whether you like it or not.
We'll go ahead and proceed with, if you want to hold your sign, you can hold your sign. Member Swank, please continue.
Okay, Ryan, would you call up my computer here, please? Maybe. Okay, so when I went to read about this, it talks about typical use cases. This is my point. I wasn't sure what we would use these for. So very quickly, there are just 5. Search and rescue. Drones can fly in hazardous situations, including environments that are potentially flammable, confined spaces, and areas with difficult terrain or limited visibility. Drones can also cover large areas in a shorter amount of time than traditional methods. Today, I had an opportunity to talk with the Sheriff's Department about their use of drones. Has anybody been fearful the last 5 or 6 years here in Athens? Yeah. Well, you know, the Sheriff's Department has 4 drones. 4 drones. Yeah. And they use them for things that I just mentioned. Second, crash response. Drone footage can convey crash severity, potential hazards, and impact to traffic immediately following an incident. An overhead view of the crash can inform crews of the quickest route to the scene, where to block roadways, and where to divert traffic so that the mounting public can navigate safely around that crash. I found a video from Cleveland the other day, and it was about a crash in Chula Vista, California in 2017. There'd been a crash on the highway, and a person called in via 911 and was upset, had seen it, had conveyed where it was, and the police went to that site. At the same time, the police department deployed a drone. Well, as it turns out, the caller on the 911 call gave incorrect directions. And because of the drone, at the last minute, the police car was redirected from the supposed crash site to the correct crash site. Why was that so important? The person in the car was about to die because the car was burning up. And they were able to pull that individual from the car and save them as the car went up in flames. Crash response, very, very common use of drones. Public safety and incident report. Drones can provide real-time visual information to enhance situational awareness. Some drones are also equipped with two-way communication for crisis negotiation. Crisis negotiation. We had that down on Beasley Mills, back on Union Street. We did not have to send officers into a building where we thought there were bombs. Here's an interesting one I'd never thought about. Drones can be used to drop automated external defibrillators and other critical medical supplies like Narcan, EpiPens, and tourniquets to the scene of an emergency. We have all kinds of national parks or state parks around here. What a great way to get stuff in there where we might not be able to go. And finally, natural disaster response. Drone footage can provide crews an aerial view to assess damage after natural disasters like a tornado or flood, and plan recovery efforts on the ground. Again, this is a response program. This is not a surveillance program. And finally,
Member Swank can continue. We need to maintain some respectful decorum here. Member Swank, please continue your comments.
All of us have received lots of emails, and most of them, all of them have been, every email I received has been against this program. In the customer service world, we call those complaints. You go to a restaurant, you didn't like the way your food was prepared. But on the flip side of that are compliments. I talked to quite a few people last night at the Athens High basketball game, and not one person face-to-face told me that this was a bad idea. In fact, the comments I received is, I don't see what the problem is. If this is going to ensure public safety and allow our trusted public safety officials to respond in a more accurate and quicker way, why not? Particularly when it's not going to cost the city a penny. And as I stated, if this were to move forward, I would like those two things, continuation of the program and funding approval by council, to be included in that, in that ordinance.
Thank you, Member Swank. Additional comments, Member Clodfelder.
I think the timing of this is just really unfortunate. I guess I agree that there could be good public safety uses of this, but I am really concerned by the possibility that state or federal agencies would get a hold of information that had been filmed for safety and emergency reasons at a time when ICE is being so horrible in this country. So it's just unfortunate that this came up right now, because I just think there's a lot of fear about ICE around, including I am fearful of ICE. There may be very legitimate ways to use a drone like this, but I just think the timing is off. I just think there's too much fear right now of surveillance, and what the state and federal government might do with our data.
Thank you, Member Clodfelder. Any other comments from council members? I'd like to go back to Member Swank's recommendations that should this ordinance for authorizing the City Safety Service Director to enter the City of Athens into this grant agreement move forward to our regular session. Member Swank has recommended that it be contingent upon council approval for continued participation past the 2-year pilot, and also that council's approval be required for ongoing funding. With that in mind, I would like council to prepare for a possible vote, if we have both a motion and a second, to approve the Service Safety Director to enter into an agreement with the State of Ohio Department of Transportation for the DFR program and declaring an emergency.
So move.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll now move forward to a vote. And again, to clarify, this is voting for this to move from committee discussion to regular session for further discussion. This does not ultimately end the discussion and authorize. It's just beginning our process. So we'll take a vote by show of hands. All in favor of moving this from committee of the whole to regular session, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, nay?
Nay.
I see 2, 4, and 5 against. So with that, this does not have the support to move from committee of whole to regular session, which, as indicated, has implications for subtopic 3, the particular financing and appropriations involved. This does not, so we won't be taking a vote on that ordinance, but this does not close the matter of the possibility of introducing some privacy language into our city's policies. And I would like to first check to see if any council members have questions or comments about moving forward with a potential motion and second on this. Member Sherwood, do you have a question or comment?
Well, I just want to say, in light of all of the information we've received from people in the room, and including from Austin, who are experts in this field, that I think one thing we've certainly learned is that we should have some of this language in our city code, because we do have some of these, we've body camera technologies, and any language in our code that can give our residents more confidence that if the city was in a position to procure other technology or other systems along these lines, that these guidelines, these parameters are already in place. So, what I would say is about this ordinance, I would certainly be willing to have it go forward to full council. I do think there's a lot more conversation, a lot more that needs to be added in here.
Appreciate that. And just for clarification, before I move to Member Thomas and Member Clodfelder for this piece, we're discussing whether or not we want to move forward with an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title III to add Section 3.05.061 Advanced Technology and Civil Liberties Policy, and this would not be contingent upon entering the drone grant program. Member Thomas, and then Clodfelder, and then Swank.
I would just echo everything Member Isherwood said. This could move forward tonight. We could take a little more time and get some of the expertise and really add more things into it. I think it's wise to put it into code and might as well have this as a backstop. But we could move it forward tonight, or we could take some more time with it. I think either would work.
So more time at committee level, or moving to first reading, essentially?
Yeah.
Member Clodfelder?
Yeah.
I guess I'm just a little confused as to why we're still talking about moving it forward when it was just voted down 5-2.
We didn't vote it down.
So what we, just to clarify, what we voted down with the 5-2, or what council voted down, was the authorization for the entry into the grant program, which meant we didn't need to have a vote on appropriating funds for that purpose. The piece that we hadn't handled was the policy changes in an ordinance amending Athens City Code to build in some policy language around protections for advanced technology and civil liberties. So the discussion has taken shape such that there is still interest in enhancing our policies related to these technologies, even though we're not showing support for this particular grant program at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Member Swank.
I think I would like to send this back to committee, probably City and Safety Services. I think to do that for two reasons. One, a little bit more time to talk about it. Secondly, to engage people like Mr. Kuhn. I believe Mr. Woodbridge spoke about language. There are certainly others in the community. No need to rush this through. However, let's get it right. I don't know if any of us are experts in this field. I know I am not, but there certainly are in the community. Why not engage them at the committee level to have these discussions and get this in place, sooner than later? I don't want to be having this conversation next, next February, but certainly don't need to do it in the next 3 weeks.
Thank you, Member Swank. Any other comments on this policy piece from council members?
I was as the chair of the City Safety Services Committee, I think that makes sense, because I do feel one of the things that we're learning tonight is a sense from the community that perhaps this was rushed, and that was never the intention, but it was more a version of the timeline that was seemingly imposed by the nature of the grant. But I do think this is important, and we should take the time to do it, and so we'd be happy to take it back up at committee to make sure that this is in place.
Our law director and parliamentarian isn't available at the moment for consultation on which committee this would best reside in for next discussion, but Member Swank has made, I'll invite Member Swank to restate your suggestion as a motion for this topic to continue through committee discussion. And if there's a second to that, we'll have a vote just to confirm that we're on the same page. And if we don't have a second for continuation at this time, we'll see what we do next.
I would move that we refer this to the proper committee after consultation with the parliamentarian as to appropriate placement.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of continuing the discussion of creating an amendment to Title III to add language on advanced technology and civil liberties, please indicate so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by saying nay? All right, with consensus, we move forward with that going to committee, but the grant program itself and the funding for it were not supported, and that concludes tonight's discussion on the grants. All right. We understand many people have come, so take a minute if you are only intending to remain here for the grant topics to quietly leave. Otherwise, we encourage you to stay for the rest of our riveting committee discussion and our regular
Street
session.
closures.
Yes.
I'm going to excuse myself for street closures.
Oh, because you're a business owner?
With glasses? Yes. Okay.
Are we doing street closures?
Yeah, that's yeah.
Me either, but I think you wrote it down. Okay.
I can recuse myself for street closures.
All right.
It's transportation.
We'll begin in about 30 seconds. If you would please find your way back to your seats in an orderly fashion. Okay. Yep. Do we need a minute? Yep. Do you need 5?
Here, right, for the next.
For street closures?
I'm confused with the transportation committee. Do I have to sit here for that?
Oh, that's how everyone. I'll see.
Yeah, I haven't made
I love that whole everyone else is so adorable. Polite. Yeah, polite. But you can't give my senior times like you can have my time. It's like, no, they still only get 3.
In a moment, we'll be moving forward with our Transportation Committee meeting, so if we can have Transportation Committee members remain at the dais and other council members join the audience, that would be helpful at this time.
We supposed to have these chairs, or do we?
Oh, and wherever. Yep.
Wait,
We're
there are
miss-
only 2 of us.
Yes,
from
and
the committee up here.
we are missing,
Alan Swank.
yes, Member Swink will be just a moment.
Okay. I don't know where he went.
For those watching online, we are just transitioning from our Committee of the Whole meeting to our Transportation Committee meeting, and we'll begin momentarily. I believe we can probably begin with some background, so let me go ahead and begin by saying that our Transportation Committee is chaired by Beth Clodfelder and joined by John Stazer and Alan Swank, who will be with us in just a moment, but we do need to go ahead and just begin with some preliminary information. Member Clodfelder, I turn things over to you.
Sure. So we only have one item tonight for the Transportation Committee before we go into a full City Council meeting. But this is something that's been, I've been trying to get up here for a month. And this is something we do every year when people want to hold festivals or events in town, which I personally think are some of the nicest parts of our summers. And we have to close the roads for them. So these are requests for road closures for events. And if you would be patient, I think I need to read through all of them one time to put them in the public record, even though there are several. And there are 3 related ordinances, one for the road closures, one for a waiver of noise ordinances, and one to allow vending. And I'm going to have to read all of them for each one. So if you will allow me. Applications have been received by the administration for the following requested street closures for city festivals and events. The International Street Fair, to be held on Saturday, April 11th, which would close Union Street from Court to University Terrace. The Survivor Advocacy Outreach Program Community Safety Event, which would be held on Friday, April 17th, to close Union Street from Congress to Court Street. The Dora opening event on May 16th, which would close Court Street from Washington to State. The Plains Lions Club Cruise-In on Saturday, June 6th, Friday, July 31st, and Friday, August 28th on Court Street from Washington to State Street. The Pride Street Fair on Saturday, June 6th, which would close Union Street from Congress to Court. Boogie on the Bricks on Saturday, June 13th, which would close Court Street from Washington to State. The 4th of July celebration on Saturday, July 4th, which would close Court Street from Washington to Carpenter. Ohio Brew Week First Call on Friday, July 10th, which would close Court Street from Washington to State. Ohio Brew Week Last Call on Saturday, July 18th, which would close Court Street from Washington to Carpenter. The Athens Community Arts and Music Festival on Saturday, August 1st, which would close Union Street from Congress to Court. Bounty on the Bricks on Saturday, August 8th, which would close Court Street from Union to Washington. and the Halloween block party on Saturday, October 31st, which would close Court Street from Washington to Carpenter. For each of these events, parking will be banned on the above designated streets beginning no earlier than 3 a.m. and no later than 1 a.m. the following day to accommodate said events. That's the first one. Then, two other related ordinances. The unnecessary noise ordinance will be suspended for each of these events until midnight on the day of the event for the following street closures, which is not exactly the same list. The International Street Fair, the Survivor Advocacy Outreach Program Community Safety Event, the Dora Opening Event, the Pride Street Fair, Boogie on the Bricks, the 4th of July Festival, the Ohio Brew Week First and Last Call, the Athens Community Arts and Music Festival, and the Halloween Block Party. And thirdly, the vending ordinance will be suspended from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. to allow vending in the designated street closure areas at such times and areas determined and appropriated by the administration for the following events: the International Street Fair, the Dora Opening Event, Boogie on the Bricks, the 4th of July celebration, the Athens Community Arts and Music Festival, the Ohio Brew Week First and Last Call, Bounty on the Bricks, and the Halloween Block Party. Vendors will be entitled to vending spots on a first-come, first-served basis as determined by the Code Enforcement Office. Those vendors currently holding a license to vend on East Union Street shall be allowed to continue to operate at a time and location determined by the Service Safety Director and the event organizer. A fee of $25 per vendor and food license permit from the Athens City Council Health Department. Unless there are any objections, I move that we bring this forward to first reading in the full council.
We gonna talk about it?
Thank you, Member Clodfelder. We'll just take some comments from the administration and public and committee before we move right to the motion. Do we have any elected officials who wish to comment on street closures or the corresponding noise or vending ordinances? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
I do have a question for council. If I'm not mistaken, there was a request that came in recently for another street closing during Dora. Clerk of Council, did you haven't received anything? Okay. I know that there was one. It was a north block on Court Street request. So this has happened in the past, to continue to work on this piece of legislation. As much as we would rather all event organizers come early in the year and come together, as a matter of fact, even come at the end of the previous year to make sure that we understand the requests as the request that you just read, so that we don't have to do this process again and again and again, which is what we used to have to do. Go back 6 years ago, 7 years ago, the process was very different to where every single request came at various times throughout the year, which was problematic from a planning standpoint to know we have on the calendar when events are taking place, to where there's going to be street closings. That's important, not just for our citizenry to understand, but it's important for business owners in the affected areas to completely understand what are the dates in which there's going to be restricted parking or there's going to be a complete shutting down of the street. Okay. I just know that I've heard that there...
Back to the bricks. It is part of this ordinance.
It is in this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was not in the document that I received.
Okay.
That was last week.
Okay.
But it was added. Andrew sent an email to us about it.
And the date for Back to the Bricks would be June 9th?
It's a June 9th event.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Will that also need the noise ordinance and the vendor permission?
It needs the noise ordinance, both, and suspension of the vending.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Clerk Walker, does it also indicate the length of time? Because to suspend the noise ordinance means that an event will go beyond what is our typical current laws on the books for noise, excessive music, whatever.
According to the document I received, the unnecessary noise ordinance will be suspended until midnight on the day of the event.
Midnight that particular day, okay.
Yeah.
With our drone discussion, we treated each ordinance as a sort of separate topic for discussion and voting. I'll ask the chair for your preference. Typically, these aren't as controversial, but there can be differences of opinion on whether it's okay to close the street, but not approve the vending. Would you like to proceed with all of them at once or to break them apart?
Honestly, in the interest of efficiency, so that we can begin our full meeting,
Yes.
Unless there are strong objections, I would rather handle all three of them at once.
That seems reasonable to me. We've had the chair provide some initial framing, and we've heard from the mayor. Do we have any comment from the public on the street closures or corresponding vending ordinances or noise ordinances? Questions or comments from the public are welcome at this time. Seeing none, we'll move to members of the Transportation Committee.
Committee, yes.
Yeah. Do you have any members?
Good question for the mayor, not to put you on the spot, sir, but people will be reading about this in the press and they're going to see, oh my goodness, Halloween falls on Halloween this year. And the follow-up question they will be asking all of us, will we stick with trick or treat on Halloween or will it be some other time?
So what you're referencing is our neighborhood trick-or-treating.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yes.
No, you're
Yeah.
and I understand your point of asking that question. The answer, we knew that at some point, because of the calendar, that this would happen. We still will have, and I feel strongly about this, and I'm just going to tell everyone here and anyone who's watching, is that within our neighborhoods for trick-or-treating in the neighborhoods, I always found it to be odd when it was on a Thursday and whatever the date was on the calendar before the 31st is when it happened. So they're going to occur at the same time. The difference is going to be this. Again, number one, these are neighborhoods, and number two, it will again be 5:30 to 7:30, and that's when the neighborhood, we'd call it Beggar's Night, but Halloween trick-or-treating will be taking place. And then what we know on Court Street with the Halloween block party is that really, there's going to be Honey for the Heart, hopefully. I shouldn't say that too quickly, but I'm hopeful that the Honey for the Heart parade still occurs during the Halloween block party on Court Street. And that time frame will be, we'll better understand that from Passion Works as to when they're going to actually kick that off. I'm hopeful that it doesn't conflict. It may with the neighborhood trick-or-treating, but they will both occur on the same night. The Halloween block party really doesn't in earnest start until 8:30, 9 o'clock in the evening.
Excuse me.
Even though we do the street closing all day long, because we took advantage of the fact that at the time, Ayuba would have their uptown trick-or-treating on Court Street for the business owners, as well as the Honey for the Heart parade. So long answer to a short question. The short question is they will both be occurring on the 31st of October. So
That sounds good, and I appreciate the fact for the first time in 50 years, you're going to close the street for my birthday again.
All for you, Member Swing.
Not on Halloween, though.
And I would just like to enter into the record, because I did it for all the others, that one that came in later. On, on June 13th, on June 9th, there will be an event called Back to the Bricks, which will close Court Street from State to Carpenter.
Thank you, Chair Clodfelder. Do we have any other comments on the street closures or corresponding noise and vending ordinances from committee members?
I would move that we move these three ordinances from committee to regular session.
Second.
Okay. Then there is clear support, no opposition indicated for moving these forward. I would then just like to bring up the associated topic that is a new consideration from the administration, that given the context of our budgetary challenges as a city, that this may be a year where we need to invite organizers of these various festivals to contribute financially to defer some of the costs the city incurs. So this is a question for committee members to consider whether you would be open to continued conversations about introducing a fee range for that would potentially look like something like a very small event would cost $500 for the event organizers, medium $1,000, and a large $1,500. This would be to, again, defer costs that the city incurs for these street closures. So I'm going to pose that to the chair and then ultimately just request a sense of whether or not this is something the committee would like to request as we move forward with these street closure conversations.
I guess my first reaction is that if we were going to ask them for a fee, that should have been clear before they submitted an application, and that this would be not a pleasant surprise for them now, that their applications are in the process. We'll see how it turns out of being approved for these street closures and the vendor and the noise ordinance. I think it's too late to introduce fees this year, that we could consider that for next year in the announcement of the opportunity to apply. And then if people didn't like the idea of paying a fee, they could not apply. But they've already applied this year. So in my opinion, it's too late to suddenly spring fees on people.
Thank you. Chair has shared comments on this initial idea. Any other comments from committee members?
I would agree with her. Yeah, I think it's too late at this point to say, yeah, we might charge you a fee for this.
Yeah, I would make it 3. It's kind of like the old resort fee. You go to a place, and oh, by the way, in addition to your room tax and tip, you're going to charge $45 to get a newspaper.
And to the chair's point that this might be worthy of consideration for future years, would you like this to come back to committee for further discussion as we're discussing these, or would you like to just save that for later?
I personally would prefer to save it for later. I want to get this one done.
All right. Well, that's helpful. That's the feedback.
Because the first event is April 11th.
Absolutely.
And I feel like it's getting tight.
Yeah. That discussion item was something that the City Safety Service Director had asked me to raise, but I do want to invite the mayor if there's anything you'd like to add about the potential future discussions the Transportation Committee might have about fees associating with these festivals and street closures.
Yeah, I truly appreciate council's conversation about, thinking about applying it to this year. I think there's much more that needs to be fleshed out in something like this to look at this being in place for calendar year 2027. Just so people understand, when there is a street closure, there is city staff that has to go down and do a sundry of different things, everything from bagging the meters to putting up the barricades to filling those barricades with water if we have to harden the event space for people who want to do nefarious things, to those who are participating within the cordoned area. Also, oftentimes, vendors who are vending within said space have electric requirements, and so therefore our electrician has to go out and we have to pay the electrician on overtime often because these typically occur on weekends or after their normal hours for the electrician to be working on things in the city of Athens. So that is the financial portion that we're thinking through. But again, to see this being discussed now and early this year certainly gives event organizers a better understanding as to what could be happening in 2027 if council, as we built out how this looks as an ordinance, the vendors will be, or I shouldn't say vendors, the event organizers should be tracking right along with what council is doing, or I'd hope they would, certainly keeping them informed.
I would agree, and I've heard of some festival organizers contemplating switching to a larger street section of closure, and if they knew in advance that that was going to potentially come with a larger fee, that would be important for them to know. Mm-hmm. So since this this Transportation Committee this evening has decided to move forward with the street closures themselves and the corresponding ordinances on noise and vending, but not on additional fees this evening, I would say that our Transportation Committee meeting is closed for the evening.
It is indeed concluded.
All right. Wonderful. So that committee is now adjourned.
Hey, Paul.
And if Member Isherwood could grab any council members from the audience and let them know it's time to come back for our regular session beginning in just a moment. All right, big thank you to our council members, elected officials, and members of the audience for hanging in there with us. It is February 17th, 2026 at 9:05 p.m., and we are beginning regular session of City Council. I'm City Council President Micah McCary, and our first item of business is to call council to order and establish quorum. We have all members of council present, so we do have quorum. And our next item is approval of the agenda. Member Swink.
President McCary, I would move that we amend tonight's agenda to include 01626, 01726, and 01826, three items that we just discussed in the Transportation Committee.
All right, we have a motion to amend the agenda to include the three transportation street closure items just discussed in Transportation Committee. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of amending the agenda to include these three ordinances for the Transportation Committee indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to this amendment indicate so by saying nay. All right, the agenda has been amended to approve those ordinances. Thank you, Member Swink. Do we have any additional amendments to the agenda that individuals would like to propose? All right, seeing none, the agenda has been approved for the evening. Our next item of business is the disposition of minutes for regular session of City Council held January 20th, 2026. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And may I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes before I get to opposed, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Great. The minutes from regular session held January 20th, 26th have been unanimously approved. Next, we have communications from council members. Then we'll move on to communications from other elected officials. And we'll begin with Member Isherwood.
Yeah, I received an email from a concerned citizen, and it's not the first time I've had communication with members of the community about this concern about the deer in our city. And, it's an issue that I know that a lot of people in the community feel. And it's one that I bring to City Council a lot. And it's not that, as a City Council member, I want to sort of abrogate any kind of level of responsibility. But so I did bring this to the City Safety Services Director, who reached back out to me with information. And essentially, I just want to this is sort of more of a information for people to know that wildlife is governed by the state of Ohio. And if in the event you have concern about deer on your property, that you should contact ODNR, the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. The city's role is limited to mainly cleaning up roadkill when appropriate. And that the city trash service have in the past removed deer that have died in people's yards. And the city did start a bow hunting lottery program on city lands last year through Arts, Park, and Rec. I know for some people that was not whatever your view on that, some people were not supportive of that, but it was an effort at least to try and deal with this issue. It had some success, and there is consideration to try it again. So I know the deer in the city is a concern for a lot of people, but if that is concerned, please do reach out to ODNR, because the more people that reach out to ODNR about the issue, the more seriously they have to take the issue. And that's where I'd like to leave that.
Thank you for that communication, Member Isherwood. Other members of council?
Yeah.
On behalf of the Athens Community Relations Commission, I would like to share a reminder that the Commission has a resource in place for any community member or visitor to Athens who wants to report instances of discrimination that they've observed or directly experienced. So if you have felt like you've experienced or observed discrimination in Athens, the Athens Community Relations Commission would invite you to fill out a form on the city ACRC website. You can just Google Athens Community Relations Commission, put in the word Ohio so you don't end up on Athens, Georgia's website, and then you'll see the form and the information about the commission itself immediately presented. The commission does have vacancies, so if you're interested in joining a commission that is about supporting relationship building and understanding across differences in Athens, the Athens Community Relations Commission does have vacancies, and our council appreciates your engagement. Do we have other communications? Member Swink.
Yes, members of council, I'd like your opinion on this. We received another liquor request. This is to add a D3A license to 14 Station Street, the old Uncork location, which we recently had the transfer of a D1, D2, and D3. And this is coming immediately after. What a D3 does, it takes, it allows the sale till 2:30 in the morning. And if you know the location, it's right across the street from the Station Street Apartments. The deadline for us to indicate whether or not we want a hearing on this is March 14th, so we have a little time. Personally, I would like to find out a little bit more about this business, what kind of things going in it. Is it a restaurant? Is it a bar? This, that, and the other, simply because of the proximity to those other houses. What I would propose, and it's certainly up to members of council, since we do have time, was to bring this up next week in Planning and Development Committee, because liquor permits fall under that committee. Does that sound reasonable? Because we do have a deadline, but it's not right around the corner. Okay, so that takes care of that one. This one, we did this one, didn't we? Yeah, this was
That's the one that we didn't follow through with, because you said it wasn't on the agenda.
Oh, okay. So we have another communication, and this was the one for down on Union Street, Siam Thai. And I think at the end of that conversation that I agreed with what the mayor said, that one of the things we need to look at in these sort of things is, in addition to increased employment and increased revenue, preserving existing businesses. And I think when we had that conversation, we were pretty much in agreement we didn't need a hearing, unless I hear otherwise from members of council. This is simply the liquor transfer. It's a Trex permit from entity in Lyndhurst, Ohio, up by Cleveland, to Siam Thai on Union Street. Anyone feel that we need to ask for a hearing on this? Okay, those are the two liquor communications today.
Thank you, Member Swink. Any additional communications from council members that they'd like to share at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to communications. Oh, thank you. All right. All right. Okay, so this is notice that per Ohio Revised Code, 60 days has expired since the Hugh White Honda annexation was approved for release by the Athens County Commissioners and in the council office for review. It is required to be on the next regular session for first reading, which will be March 2nd, with a public hearing on the zoning designation to be held 7 p.m. on March 16th. Member Swank, you may want to consider having the Planning and Development Committee discuss this on the 23rd to do a recap for council.
Right.
All right.
Has a hearing date been set?
The hearing would be on, what did I just say? March 16th at 7 p.m.
Right, yeah.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Yep, so we'll add that to Planning Development next Monday, this coming Monday.
And now we'll move on to reports and communications from elected officials. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. The only item I have tonight to share with everyone is something that I think is truly remarkable. It has nothing to do with the city government, but it certainly has to do with an individual who was raised here in the city of Athens, an individual who learned to play hockey in Bird Arena as a small child, went on to continued greatness where this individual attended Shadyside Academy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, playing both hockey and lacrosse, and then went on to Northeastern University as a goalkeeper, and has been recognized on multiple occasions. And yes, for those of you who know, and those of you who don't know, I'm referring to Gwyneth Phillips, who is one of the 3 goalies for the U.S. Women's Olympic Hockey Team. Thursday at 7:10, I believe, p.m. is the gold round, to where the U.S. Women's Hockey Team is taking on our true neighbor and partner to the north, Canada, for the gold medal. And I am a firm believer, for those of you who have been tracking and following their performance, when you look at their record in the Olympics, I believe it is 5-1, 6-0, 5-0, 5-0, 6-0, 5-0. That's truly remarkable for a team that is so rock solid. And I would be remiss not to mention that Gwyneth Phillips is the goalkeeper for the Ottawa Charge, to which she has also been recognized as an MVP within that club. You know, Linda and Guy Phillips, and possibly, I don't know, you can fact check this, I guess, her brother, Guy. I know that Linda and Guy are over there in Italy right now supporting their daughter. We're supporting Gwyneth. If you haven't noticed, we have a banner that's hanging across Court Street recognizing her talent and skills. And so it's just, I think, I don't know, this has to be fact checked too, but I think this is pretty easy. I don't believe there's ever been an Olympic, a Winter Olympian from Athens or Athens County. I know that Louis Vito, snowboarder back in the day, is from Ohio, and I'm sure there's others from the state of Ohio, possibly even on the women's team. But, you know, this is one of our homegrown heroes who is just doing an outstanding job, as all of the players for the women's U.S. Olympic team and all U.S. athletes that are skiing, snowboarding, curling right now. So this is a big deal for the city of Athens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can do that at the end of the business. Okay. Yep. Do we have reports or communications from Law Director? Right. No. Auditor? Treasurer? Okay, wonderful. And next, we'll move on to ordinances for third reading. First is an ordinance granting a special right-of-way, Ordinance 01-26, a special right-of-way use permit at 35 Elliott Street to place an in-ground sign in front of the building in the city's right-of-way, introduced by Councilmember Swank.
This is an application by Mr. Robert Preby from Uptown Realty, simply to place a sign in the city right-of-way on Elliott Street as you're leaving Stimson, headed towards Mill. Be on your right. I move that council pass the first ordinance of the year, 01-26.
We've had a motion. Can we have a second?
Second.
All in favor indicate so by saying aye.
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 Any opposed to approving ordinance 01-26 indicate so by saying nay. All right, the ordinance passes unanimously, and that's ordinance 01-26. Thank you, Member Swank. Next, for third reading, we have ordinance 02-26, an ordinance authorizing the annual purchase of water softening salt for the water treatment plant, introduced by Member Isherwood.
Yeah, so this is essentially exactly what it says. We do this every year. We purchase water softening salt for the water treatment plant.
Wonderful. Would you like to make a motion?
Oh, yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Yeah, approve ordinance 02-26.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 0-02-26.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approving this ordinance for the water softening salt purchase, indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. The ordinance passes unanimously. Next, for third reading, we have ordinance 03-26, an ordinance amending the 2026 appropriation ordinance 120-25 and authorizing interfund transfers, introduced by Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you. This is appropriating from the unappropriated balance a few sums and then some interfund transfers. We're appropriating $12,511.84 to General Fund Fire for state fire marshal grants, $20,000 to APR income tax for pool skimmer repairs, $214,000 to General Fund Other Administrative for transfer, and $161,000 to Capital Improvements Fund, also for transfer. And in the interfund transfers, $214,000 from general fund, other admin to ACIC fund, and $161,000 from capital improvements fund to ACIC fund. And I would make a motion to adopt 0-03-26.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
And for Member Clodfelder, a second? Is that, or was that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I may have been
Member
getting
Isherwood was
ahead of
the
myself.
second. There we go. And do we have any discussion? Member Clodfelder?
I do have one question. One of those, if I heard correctly, was to pay for a grant, and I wondered if you could clarify what that means.
It's appropriating, the grant was received, and it just needs to be moved into the appropriate budget line.
Thank you.
Any additional discussion on ordinance 03-26? All right. Seeing none, then we will take a vote. All in favor of approving ordinance 03-26 indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right. Ordinance 03-26 passes unanimously. Next, moving on to ordinances for second reading. And this portion, or this phase, we just read the ordinance and pause for any questions or additional information that those present might have to share. And if there's none, we'll just move right on to the next ordinance. So ordinance 04-26 is an ordinance authorizing the auditor to reduce 2026 year-end appropriations introduced by Councilmember Thomas.
Yes. We have the auditor here tonight for any follow-up questions, but I also would like to move to suspend this for passage.
And would you like to, at this time, state the reason for suspending the rules?
This is to allow the auditor to reduce 2026 year-end appropriations. They have a few areas where the revenues are not matching the expenses, and they need to reduce those expenses to close out the month.
So for the reason specified, we have a motion to suspend the rules on ordinance 04-26, authorizing the auditor to reduce 2026 year-end appropriations. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Member Stazer? Okay. And do we have discussion on the matter of suspending the rules? Member Swenk?
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of questions. I'll just put it out there like that. The stuff for the courts, I don't mind. They're piddly little amounts of money. But the amount of money for the healthcare stuff is just confounding, and I don't understand why. In 2024, December, we approved appropriations for 2025 for healthcare, $5,878,000. By the time we got around to the end of the year, there had been a revised appropriations that brought that figure to $6,628,000. And as of the last month-end closing we had an unencumbered balance of $851,554. In December of 2025, we appropriated for the 2026 budget $5,910,000, an increase of $32,000 over the previous year. Now we're being asked to reduce that. Why? That's the first question.
Well, so the budget was passed mid-December. It takes about 6 weeks for us to get all of our revenue in and all of our bills paid after the beginning of the year to see where we stand. So when they come in, we do this cleanup every year in January and into February, usually, where we have to make adjustments in the budget. And if you look at the whole big medical budget, it's not really that much money for that budget. I don't know what else to tell you. We've got a negative in our report right now, and we're not allowed to have that, and so we have to make that adjustment. If we don't think the revenue is going to come in to meet what the budget is, we can't just leave it that way. The auditors are the ones who told us years ago to do these reductions, because even if we haven't spent all of the money in our budget so far this year. However, if we don't think we're going to get that full amount, we could spend it. It looks like the money could be spent even when we know it's not in there because it's appropriated. They have permission to spend it. And we can't leave it like that. We're not supposed to leave it like that because they can't. It's like if you, we put $100 in your budget and only 75 comes in, and you maybe only spend 50, but the fact is, on the books, you could go ahead and spend $100, but we won't have it. We only have 75 in revenue. And that's just what's going on. It's just an adjustment. Probably that money is going to have to go back in there by the end of the year. We had the biggest medical bill for 1 week. We get billed weekly that I've seen in my 22 years as auditor. It was huge. There's just a lot going on with the medical expenses, and we've tried to make adjustments. We've increased the amount of money that we're withholding from all the departments for the employees, and likely that will help and will come out better, but we don't know that yet. And so from what we're looking at now, this is what's going to come in, and so we can't just leave it like that. We can always go back and make it bigger, but we can't leave it with a negative, like an overspending in our medical fund.
So last year we spent, we with revised appropriations, appropriated $6,628,000. How much did we spend last year?
If I could pause real quick, I understand Member Swank has indicated you have several questions, and right now we're on the suspension of the rules. We've had a motion and a second, so I'd like to ask the auditor for any clarifying information you might have about the need to suspend the rules before we move on to more technical questions.
So that we can close out February without January, without making negatives, having negatives on our reports that the auditors are going to ding us for. Okay. And the fact is, we know that they shouldn't be in there.
So for the reasons described, we have a motion and a second for suspending the rules. Do we have any questions about suspending the rules before we vote on suspending the rules? Member Swank.
Again, my line of questioning will inform fellow council members whether or not there is a necessity to suspend the rules.
All right.
In reality, the way we should do this is that we should discuss the item, flesh it all out, and at that point in time, after a fully formed discussion, have a motion to suspend the rules, not the other way around.
I'm comfortable with you continuing to seek some additional information
Thank you.
now. But
I have, thank you.
Procedurally, I do want to get a sense of where we're going
I had
first.
several questions.
I am going to go to Member Thomas right now, and then I'm going to get a sense of where we need to go next. Member Thomas.
I just want to say that the reality is we can vote to suspend the rules, and whether we vote for this to go forward still happens. This is just allows us to suspend the rules. It's not voting to pass it. You could do the suspension of the rules as the order says we should be doing it, and then proceed with what is probably several questions after that, and then we'll be having the vote on this ordinance.
To the parliamentarian, would you offer your guidance at this point in where we're at with the suspension of the rules?
I think I would agree with Member Thomas in that we can decide on suspending the rules, but then make a motion to adopt, and that's when all the discussion occurs, and maybe it won't be adopted.
Okay. Based on that guidance from the parliamentarian, we've had a first and a second for suspending the rules, and we understand that there may be questions that would inform the necessity of speed, but right now we are taking a vote on suspending the rules or not. All in favor of suspending the rules indicate so at this time by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, we have 6 for 1 against suspending the rules, so we will suspend the rules. And now we will move forward with the questions that Member Swank had. Member Swank.
So we have revised appropriations of $6,628,000. How much did we spend?
What, last year?
Yeah.
Total expenses for last year, year-to-date expense. There we are. $5,784,046.
Which means we carried over $841,554.
We carried over $567,000.672.
Well, if you subtract the $5,784,000 from the $6,628,000, it comes up to $841,554.
I'm reading our reports. You know, there's other things in our expenses, like administrative fees.
Well, that's what I meant by
And-
spend. That's a
yeah.
spend. That's an
Right.
expenditure of money. So you said 500 and what?
567. $672.
So that could be considered carry forward money from 25 to 26. And how much money did we spend in January of 2026?
I didn't bring that one.
We don't have
We
it in
haven't
front of us.
finished
We
it.
So how could we say we're in the negative when we have $567,000 carried forward?
Sure.
It's just a budgeting tool. When you look at the budget, our estimated revenue plus our carryover has to equal what we appropriated for the entire year. Between end of November, beginning of December, and mid-January, the estimated revenue shrank because the carryover wasn't as large as what we anticipated when we created the budget in end of January.
The estimated revenue for the year.
That's the estimated part.
For the year, though. The key is the year, not the month.
Okay, but if we do that, playing that out, still that fund will show a negative balance. It will show that we are saying for the entire year we're going to spend more than what we've estimated we're going to bring in. So for the short term, what we do is we lower that appropriation so that those two numbers meet each other. Okay. The other way you could do it is you could just say, well, we'll guess that the revenue would be higher. That's not an appropriate way to do it because we don't know that. We can control the expense side a little bit more. So what we would do is lower that. The thing with the budget to remember this is, and unfortunately, we do not have Member Risner here anymore to remind us. It's a living document. It changes every month. Every month we just read the first ordinance of the year says we are appropriating from the unappropriated sum of the budget. Okay, it changes all the time. What this allows the auditor to do, this ordinance allows the auditor's office that when we see this throughout the year, that guess what, the revenue is not coming in the way we had hoped, that we can then reduce the appropriations. Spending less money, that's what we hear about all the time, spend less money, spend less money. We can actually then change appropriations because we have to keep those balances even. We cannot, on our report, say, well, we plan to spend more than what we really plan to bring in. That just doesn't work. So this gives them the opportunity to do that. Quite frankly, we passed this ordinance last summer, if you remember. It was right after the summer break that we came back and said we would like to have this ordinance in place because we needed to be able to for the rest of the year. Well, we're in a tight budget these days. So we can't just guess that it's going to be good or hope that the revenue is going to come in. We need to pay attention to these numbers. The truth of the matter is it kind of saved our butts toward the end of the year last year by being able to, the auditor was able to go in and make small adjustments here and there. Now keep in mind, this is not just the auditor. The very first line is going to be, that we're going to section 2, we're going to coordinate the reductions with the administration to facilitate proper planning for delivering reduced services to the public if we have to. Okay, this is not just the auditor's office going through and saying, let's just slash things. This is us coordinating with the administration and saying, how are we going to make this work as we move forward? But again, these things have to be in balance. We cannot just say, well, hopefully the revenue will come in to meet these expenses. If the expense looks a little too high, we have to bring it down. Again, the budgeting process, we do this in November, but then we don't know the carryover. We can guess. The auditor has done a fantastic job over 20 years guessing the carryover. But as we've said, times are different right now. The budget's tighter, and we got to take the time to do this right. This is the way you do it right, is that you put this in place so that we can, every month, we can look and make the necessary adjustments that we need to. Now, to that point, are we going to probably somewhere during the middle of the year say, now we need to increase some things because we know the expenses are coming in? That's a possibility too. Increases, we can't do on our own. That's a 3-reading process that you guys are going to go through. But the decreases, This is how we keep the budget in line. This is how we keep the state auditors from coming in and saying, what are you doing, Athens? How are you projecting? How are you saying you're going to spend way more money than you've even projected that you're going to bring in? You have to keep those things in line. And again, it's a year. That when the month closes out, it's still talking about the whole year, the fund balance. It's not talking about just 1 month. It's talking about the entire year.
No, that makes sense. So I guess the last question I have is this. The budget we approved in December was for appropriations of $5,910,000. What did you project would be with our carry forward, our revenue for 2026?
That number.
So you expect, so what are you projected? Because what this says is we're anticipated receipts. So what are you anticipating the receipts to be now?
Well, again, we anticipate them to be close to what we said. The difference that you're talking about, you're wanting to know where the difference is, and it's in that carryover number. When that budget was projected, that included what we thought would be the carryover. Am I correct about that? That would include what we felt like the carryover would be. But we can't predict that in November. Again, if we had a crystal ball at the end of November, we would have anticipated that number being, what are we reducing it by? Remember, Tom?
230,000 or something.
We would have put in the budget that the medical fund is actually would have been $230,000 less than that, but we didn't have that crystal ball to know that in November. Come mid-January, we have a much better picture as to exactly what the carryover is, combine that with what we anticipate the revenues are going to be, and that's where we get to that number.
So you're anticipating our revenues are going to be 236,000, whatever the number is, less this year?
Kind of.
Yes, in a way. Our combined revenue and carryover is that much less.
Okay.
Thank you for the thorough responses to those questions from the auditor and treasurer. Do we have other questions and comments on this suspended rules ordinance from council members? Okay, so we've had the rules suspended, and now we are inviting a motion to approve this ordinance 04-26, authorizing the auditor to reduce 2026 year-end appropriations. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Member Clodfelder and a second by Member Stazer. Discussion from council members, from the mayor, other elected officials. Any other additional comments? Is that a finger?
Yeah.
Give me a hand. All right, and tell me what you're thinking, Mr. Wood.
Yeah, sorry. To Alan's point, I think on board with doing the thing. I think it's difficult, and you know, we want to be supportive of the process and what you're doing, and I understand in an idea bubble way. What you're doing, I think it's maybe what Alan is getting at is sometimes it's tough to understand just why, like the I thought our healthcare expense is going to go way up. I understand you're saying like I think that's the cognitive dissonance, and I don't know if there's really a question there or anything. I just think that's kind of what I think you're getting at. Is that correct?
Yeah, and that in the comment, we'll probably come back and ask for more money later. Why would you reduce now and come back later?
Yeah. Well, and again, I know. I got your assist too. Okay, I'll assist you too. I think what you're saying is like, right now we can press this lever, and so we'll have to press a different lever later. And so I think that's the tension that is difficult. Again, I'm gonna vote yes because I trust you guys to do it. I think it's just the way you all explain it. I think it's tough for those of us that aren't as smart.
Sometimes it's hard because
speak for yourself.
Auditor Hector, do you want to clarify?
No, I was just saying sometimes it's hard to understand our bookkeeping process. And it's just we live, and it's not your normal bookkeeping. It's not like your checkbook or anything like that, and so it can be hard. But
And Treasurer Thomas, did you want to reiterate your explanation of the changing circumstances that would result in the potential increase in appropriations later?
Well, again, we increase in appropriations every year. The general fund every year has about an extra, $1 million throughout the year that gets appropriated. You know, the budget is where we start. And then as the year progresses, we have to make changes. It's a living document. It will change all year long. And you know, but again, we won't, you know, if we need to make a change, if we come to you and we say we need to make a change to, you know, the medical fund, $500,000 later, we will also tell you where we're getting $500,000 from to make that change. You know, we have had to do fund transfers in the past to make that happen. Maybe it had to come from the general fund, wherever. We will have that in place too. It won't be just, hey, well, we need more appropriations later. We don't know where we're getting the money from. We will have that plan as well as we have every year.
Thank you. Additional comments and discussion, Member Thomas.
I think it just, excuse me, to clarify, like, you know, when the member auditor Heck referenced the medical costs, in the last year of December, we had a $230,000 medical bill in 1 week. That right there is an impact on you can't predict healthcare right now. And that was not in the budget because we had no idea that was going to happen. The budgeting tool is that, just like the $100 example, if you give free rein to spend $100 and you don't have $100 to spend, it's going to get spent, and then you would go into debt if it was real money. And it's just a budgeting tool to say, we don't want you spending more than this amount right now. Next month, revenues pick up, things come in at a higher amount, we can extend that back out. It just keeps things from getting out of hand, and it keeps things that if you were to commit to a project 6 months from now and they don't know that we really don't have that much available to spend, and they've committed 6 months out, we now have a problem in 6 months that we've committed to funds that we necessarily don't have.
As I said, we have increased the amount of money we are transferring to the medical fund from all the different funds that have employees in them who get insurance. So the thing about that is because we know our costs have been going up and that we needed more money in that fund. And so the thing is, that's just starting. That's starting this year. It's like 6 months from now, and this is why we said we might very well come back. By then, there'll be additional money in there, like more than last year. But we don't know exactly how that's all going to wash out, and there's no point in doing it now. We don't need all this money right now. We just need it to be in order in our books. And so, it's just like saying, I get my salary for a year. All of you get your big salaries. I can't go pay my mortgage.
Point of clarification.
You got a $3 a week raise this year.
I spent all mine on a Gwyneth Phillips jersey. It's all gone.
Please continue.
So I get paid every year. I can't take my salary and go pay my whole year's mortgage on January 1st because I don't have it all. We don't have all that money we're transferring in. We don't know how much our bills are going to be. All of that is coming into play here. And because we had so much this huge, in 1 week, I've never seen one over $200,000 in 1 week of expenses for our city. It's scary. And so yeah, and I think Josh said this. So we didn't have the carryover we thought we normally have it with our average of, $130,000 a week expenses. And so that cut into our carryover, which left us less to put, into our budget. And we just have to deal with it right now and clean up our books.
Thank you for that.
I don't know what else to tell you. I've been doing this for 22 years. And, you don't trust me, fine. Take a vote. It's like 9:44.
We will move on. We've had, Member Mayor, Mr. Mayor. Member Mayor. It is late. Okay.
I'll be quick at this. As was indicated, last year we planned for what we believed our carryover was going to be into the first of the year. I think council recognizes this. We get two major tranches from the income tax that comes into the city, April and October. And yet, when we budgeted, with the carryover that we were anticipating to cover those kind of drier months until we get up to April and we start to see revenue coming back into the general fund. You know, if we have a major expense, like the auditor has explained, that has hit us in the middle of this period between January 1 and April 15, that's when we have to make some adjustments, because when it comes to the budget for somebody who, a department or the city in general, we may think, okay, well, we can expense up to this, but if that revenue isn't there and we don't do this drawdown, and we do expense, you know, beyond what is actually in place, that's where the auditor's office in the city of Athens is going to take a hit from the state auditor. And so this is just that cautionary pathway that the auditor has as the tool, that you have as a tool, to sit there and protect the general revenue that we do have through the carryover, knowing that we got to get till April. You know, and I'm simplifying that, but that's kind of what the auditor and the treasurer are both telling you, council, is this is just to protect what we have so we aren't overspending because it's been already authorized, so we can expense up to X. If that money isn't there and we do that, we're in trouble. We're not just in trouble because that money's not there, we're in trouble with the state.
Any final points of discussion before our vote? All right, the rules have been suspended, so we are now moving on to a vote on Ordinance 04-26, an appropriation authorizing the auditor to reduce the 2026 year-end appropriations, introduced by Member Thomas. All in favor of approving this ordinance, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, the ordinance has passed unanimously. And now continuing on with second reading, Ordinance 05-26, an ordinance authorizing the auditor to make interfund transfers, introduced by Councilmember Thomas. Next, oh, sorry.
We need to suspend that too.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's all right. That's I should have paused longer.
Sorry, Member Thomas, we kind of forgot that.
Okay. Let me scroll back up. This is
Ordinance 05-26.
yes. Authorizing 2026 appropriations and authorizing the auditor to make interfund transfers. This is going to transfer money from general fund to the cemetery fund in the amount of $73,000, parking garage fund to the parking garage debt fund in the amount of $160,000, water fund to the water treatment plant improvement fund in the amount of $400,000. And then up above, they'll also have appropriations for $15,000 to the general fund, land and buildings for a vehicle lease payment, and $45,000 to the water fund administration for LEAX water agreement, and $10,000 to the sewer fund administration for smart bills, mailers, and meter administration fees. So I would ask for a motion to suspend.
Second.
We have a motion to suspend and a second. Could I get reiteration of the explanation for the suspension? Member Thomas, sorry, Treasurer Thomas this time.
It's just a matter, section 1 is just, when we talk about this all the time, we had to do this last year, you get the budget done and then you realize there's a couple items in there that should have been in there, right? Some things come up, so we just need to get that put in place. That way, that just simplifies, again, the budget, there changes every other week, takes care of that, and then there's just a few bills, that way we can just make sure a few bills get paid on time, that we get everything out.
All right.
Just simple as that.
So for the bookkeeping and on time or the timely bill paying reasons presented, we've had a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Additional questions and comments on suspending the rules? Auditor Hecht?
Oh, not suspended.
Okay. Anyone else on suspending the rules? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and make a vote. All in favor of suspending the rules for Ordinance 05-26 indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. The rules have been suspended. And now, Auditor Hecht, do you have some comments?
Well, I was just going to, really, the treasurer already explained, like the top part, the bottom part, about why we have to move money into these funds. Water and, parking garage is for the debt fund. The debt fund doesn't have its own revenue, so we move money from the parking garage fund. And loans, debt funds, bonds have to have their own fund. but there's no money going directly in there, except sometimes we set it up to be that way. The cemetery fund has to have, by law, its own fund, but it also has almost no revenue. I think everybody knows that cemetery is pretty well built out, and we get money for people who already have plots and then are laying to rest their family members, and that's $500 at a time. That's not enough to take care of the maintenance and pay the groundskeepers. So we move money into there to cover the cemetery expenses. And then, the water fund, the same thing. It just needs more fund in that one, as opposed to, there's actually 3 water funds and 3 sewer funds. Let's not go too far down that line, but it's just it's money that can be used for those funds and needs to be transferred in there.
Thank you, Auditor. We've had the rule suspended. Now we're in discussion before vote. Member Clodfelder.
I do have one question. I'm curious, the $73,000 transfer to the cemetery fund, do you anticipate, how far into the year do you think that will cover their expenses? Do you have an idea?
It should take care of all of it. It's, they aren't full-time employees. Let me see how much we've got in there for carryover. Cemetery. They had about $50,000 in carryover. So we don't usually end up, unless they need a vehicle or something like that, lawnmower or whatever, this should probably be about 120 is about what we usually put in there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Clodfelder, for that question. Any questions or comments from council members before we take this vote? Oh, for the vote itself, not yet. How about a motion for the vote on ordinance 05-26?
So moved.
Right.
Second.
All right, we had a motion from Member Isherwood and a second by Member Thomas to approve ordinance 05-26. Any added commentary from elected officials, Mr. Mayor? Okay, heard from the auditor, and we will now indicate support for adopting ordinance 05-26, authorizing the auditor to make interfund transfers. All in favor indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. All right, 05-26 has passed unanimously under suspension of the rules.
Can I just add one thing in here? It's kind of just an in-between thing. As Treasurer Thomas said, this is a living document. If you want to know the total amount of additional appropriations council made last year for our budget, $80+ million budget, almost $16 million council passed in additional appropriations for our entire budget. It just has to happen throughout the year. Sometimes it'll be a grant we get, and then we'll have to reappropriate that money, and then I'll have to certify it as revenue, and our whole budget changes.
Or a loan from
Or
sewer
loan,
things like that.
right, grants, loans, yeah.
Thank you for that additional information and perspective, Auditor Hecht. Now continuing under ordinances for second reading, ordinance 07-26 is an ordinance authorizing unneeded or obsolete municipal personal property to be sold by internet auction, introduced by Councilmember Thomas. Next we have, I should look around. Do we have any questions or comments or updates? Okay. Ordinance 08-26, an ordinance adopting the Athens County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan for the City of Athens, introduced by Councilmember Isherwood. Seeing no questions or indications of additional information, we will now move on to ordinances for first reading. I'll read the title of the ordinance and then pass it along to the member who's introduced the ordinance for further explanation. First, we have ordinance 09-26, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to advertise and accept bids where necessary and enter contracts for the North Hill Water Project 393, introduced by Councilmember Isherwood.
The City Safety Services Director was at our committee meeting last week and discussed the need for this. As many of you know, there have been a significant number of water line breaks on the North Hill area, so Columbia Avenue and around that area. And so the administration is not 100% sure of exactly what the remediation process for this will look like, but once the spring construction season opens up, they want to be in a position to be able to start tackling that, and so did not want to wait for the appropriation process to play out, so asked to get this started. And as you can see, that they are looking for $125,000 to the water fund maintenance, and $125,000 to the waterfront plant, and increasing those appropriations. And they would expend up to $250,000. I expect to get more information from the City Safety Services Director moving forward on the nature of what that project will look like, and I will share that with you when we get it, and certainly in committee. And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you, Member Isherwood. Ordinance 09-26 has been read for the first time. Now moving on to Ordinance 10-26, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Athens Township for control and maintenance of Theater Lane, introduced by Member Clodfelder.
Yes, this basically would be formalizing something that kind of already exists, in that the city has already been taking some care of Theater Lane. And for anybody who doesn't know, because I didn't know until this came up, Theater Lane is one of the streets off of Columbus Road. As you're driving out of town, it's off to the left. And specifically, when you are turning in kind of to the Hugh White car dealership, Theater Lane is the road that goes off to the right, that goes past the In-Town Body Shop and Greenleaf Nursery. That's Theater Lane. And so this will be formalizing the situation that the City of Athens will take control of that and be responsible for it, for things like snow removal and taking care of potholes, and it'll just be cleaner. And there's going to be a hearing coming up about annexing Hugh White Honda to the city, and if that passes, we don't know if it will or not, then it will make even more sense for the city to be in charge of Theater Lane.
Thank you for that introduction, Member Clodfelder. Do we have any comments from council, from the administration or elected officials, or members of the audience on this first reading? Yes, please come forward. And we are inviting comments from the audience at this time for Ordinance 10-26, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Athens Township for control and maintenance of Theater Lane. If you, as you're doing already, sign our sign-in sheet so that we have your contact information, and then please introduce yourself with your name, address, and let us know if you're representing yourself or an organization.
My name is Arthur Hammond. I live in Nelsonville. I just have a quick question. By annexing the Hugh White, I was just wondering what that means.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think that's a fair question. Mr. Mayor, would you like to weigh in on that?
Absolutely. Hugh White has asked for that parcel that is outside the corp limits to be annexed into the city to receive full sewer service and water service within the corp limits. That's how the corporation works and functions. And so it's a pretty straightforward annexation process, much like 68256, where the Water Cooper housing project, the apartment complexes, that was land outside the city of Athens. They too had requested annexation into the corp limit. It expands the corporation. This is not going to expand the corp limit by much, if anything. I can't remember what the acreage is with this particular addition, but it's to make the Hugh White car dealership that is in the city of Athens and the land that they acquired, which used to be the WATH radio station, WXTQ, which is obviously no longer here. That is outside the corp limit. And so Hugh White would like to make their properties whole by having it all annexed with the portions not to be annexed into the city. Yeah. But that's different than Theater Lane. Theater Lane is not an annexation. We're not looking to annex anything, and it's largely because, as was mentioned before in committee, that there's the little challenge that is the Ohio Department of Transportation Limited Access Highway, which is US 33. The land abutting Theater Lane and part of Theater Lane is in that limited access area that is ODOT, and so rather than us try to go through that process of bringing it into the city, it's just easier to have an agreement to where we will go ahead and maintain that particular roadway ourselves and keep it as part of our annual processes with street repaving and water and sewer and other amenities, that we will take that on and do that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And for the question from the audience. That, I believe ordinance 1026 has been read for the first time, and we'll move on to ordinance 11-26, an ordinance suspending Athens City Code section 7.05.03, continuous parking in the same location from Sunday, December 13th, 2026 through midnight on Sunday, January 10th, 2027, introduced by Councilmember Clodfelder.
Well, the title sort of says it all. There are some parking spots along the streets of the city of Athens where people have to move their cars every 24 hours. And for almost a month, from Sunday, December 13th, 2026, through midnight on Sunday, January 10th, 2027, people will have a waiver for that and will not have to move their cars every 24 hours. So it reads, Athens City Code Section 7.05.03, continuous parking in the same location, is hereby suspended from Sunday, December 13th, 2026, through midnight on Sunday, January 10th, 2027.
Do we have questions or comments on this ordinance up for first reading from council members? From elected officials? From members of the audience? All right, seeing none, it has been read for the first time. Thank you, Member Clodfelder. Next, we have Ordinance 12-26, an ordinance to approve a 2026 Employee Retirement Incentive Program introduced by Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you. We discussed this in committee last week. Director Stone was here to really expand on it a little bit. The city is offering an employee retirement incentive program where they're offering employees that can retire and choose up to 3 years and up to $30,000 over those 3 years in a variety of different methods to retire early. This would allow us to remove some people off of the medical fund and reduce city expenses in that way. The parameters of that are that they would have to retire by May 31st, and they would have until April 15th to commit to doing this. Yeah, do we have any questions?
Member Swank.
This is a very interesting program, and one that's obviously designed to cut costs and improve our budget. To give you an example, before I ask the question, in the 2024-2025 school year, a beginning teacher at Athens High School, for their salary and the 14% state teachers retirement contribution that the district is required to make, was $52,567. Beginning teacher, bachelor's degree, fresh out of school, first year teacher. On the other end, a teacher with 30 years experience and a master's degree, when you combine their salary plus the 14%, was $107,762. If they were to offer a program such as this, for each 30-year teacher who retires, who is then replaced by a beginning teacher, they would save $55,000 per year per position. 5 teachers, that's over $260,000, $275,000. So I'm curious because I don't think we're suspending tonight. Could we, between now and the next regular session of council, March 2nd, to kind of address what Aaron Thomas talked about last week in terms of clarity, transparency, putting the numbers out there, would it be possible to run the numbers on, if we were to take our pay bands, people who might qualify for this, and pick out maybe 4 or 5 hypothetical situations, what we would be saving per individual. Not assign it to any individual, but somebody with X number of experience, this pay band, this place, replaced next year by somebody right at the beginning. You know, how much money we could save through this. Could be nice to know. And I think it would also help in budgeting when we see this. Would that be possible to do?
Yes.
All right.
That's it.
Appreciate the question and the follow-up, Mr. Mayor and Member Thomas.
I would also just clarify that, you know, those numbers might be interesting, but we can't pick and choose who takes this. So Director Stone sent out, and discussed last week a bunch of different numbers. If he thinks around 10 people will take it, we could have up to 18 of people who would be eligible for this. But it really is somewhat irrelevant because you don't know who's going to take it. So you can't say only these people or only those people. It has to be offered to everyone.
Well, no, what I meant was the fact you said we think there might be 10 people.
Mm-hmm.
We could hypothetically figure out, we probably have somebody who those 10 people might be, and just see how much we're going to save. If one of these 10 people we're thinking about, and I'm not saying that we're calculating we're doing this, it would just be nice to know potentially. That's all I'm getting is potentially how much money we could help the budget with.
Yeah, Member Thomas?
The real savings isn't so much on the pay because a lot of those people will be replaced, albeit at probably a lower wage. It's the medical fund that would be impacted. And if you are closer to, there's a bar out back now.
That's a sign we've gone too long.
If you're closer to retirement and on that, end of life, your medical bills typically run higher and you've got more going on. So that's really where the bulk of the savings is going to come in, which again, they probably have an idea of how that could be. And somewhere it's all hypothetical. Director Stone has some information and we can talk about that more next reading on this for sure though.
Okay, thanks.
I also hear the mayor indicating that providing a hypothetical scenario would be workable, so appreciate that discussion. Mr. Mayor.
I don't live in the world of hypotheticals.
Oh, okay.
I was asked if I could put forward some numbers, so the answer is yes, I can do that.
All right.
Again, a mayor cannot live in the world of hypotheticals.
Some examples of what could happen then. Is that more accurate? Okay. All right. Anything else on that, Member Thomas? Then we'll consider Ordinance 12-26 read for the first time. Did I check for, I don't think I checked with the public. Did anyone from the public have any questions or comments on 12-26? Okay. Great. Moving on to Ordinance 13-26, an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 17 Municipal Income Tax, Chapter 17.01, Section 17.0103, 11A, Definitions, and 17.01096B, Refunds, introduced by Councilmember Thomas.
These are just matching up Athens City Code with the ORC code and the changes they've made. Mostly that they added in Armed Forces has the same meaning as in 10 USC 101 in Ohio Revised Code, and that anyone who filed a tax return and had an extension also gets that extension time when they apply for a refund. But this is just standard work that we have to do to keep our code in line with the Ohio Revised Code.
Absolutely. So as a statutory city, we need to maintain compliance between our city municipal code and the Ohio Revised Code, as Member Thomas is explaining. So this is for that purpose. Do we have any comments or questions from council members, elected officials, members of the audience?
I was just going to
Yes.
say, because I think it's kind of interesting. They've added like SpaceX and NASA and the Coast Guard and other, agencies like that. So they get that same benefit as the regular military does, is all it is. And like Member Thomas said, it's just adding to the wording.
Make sure we have the same terms. Perfect. All right. Well, that 013-26 has been read for the first time, and we're moving to Ordinance 14-26, an ordinance authorizing the adoption of an agreement with the Athens City Firefighters Local 3351 and Ohio Council 8 AFSCME AFL-CIO concerning wages and working conditions and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Thomas.
Yes, this is the final, or the contract that we came to with the Athens Fire Department. This would be the approval of that agreement. There were a variety of changes. The entire contract is in the packet. Highlighted is where all the changes have come back, adding a section on conversion, converting sick days at the end of their tenure, in a different formula there. The effective date of this is November 2nd, 2025, and will run through October 28, 2028, with the exception of wages. And they have a reopener in this year of 2026 and the year 2027 to have another negotiation on wages on each of those years.
Thank you, Member Thomas. Do we have any questions or discussion? Member Swank?
I assume wages to be retroactive to November 2nd of 2025?
No.
Yes. The increase, yeah.
What year we're in, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, that means ordinance 14-26 has been read for the first time. Moving on to first reading of ordinance 15-26, an ordinance approving then and now certificates for payment and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Thomas.
Yes. We've done these a couple times already this year. These are then and nows where bills that were received and have to be paid within 30 days, just due to timing and ORC rules. There's a big long list of these in here. I think there's about 11 of them. I have, notes on what each one is if anyone has a question about anything, but basically we would need to suspend so that these can be paid within the 30 days.
Move to suspend.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, motion by Member Swank, second by Member Isherwood. All in favor of suspending the rules for ordinance 15-26, please indicate. Oh, I didn't do discussion for suspending the rules. All right, any discussion on suspending the rules? All right, seeing none, now we'll move on to a vote. All in favor of suspending the rules for ordinance 15-26 indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, the rules have been suspended unanimously.
Does anyone have any questions then on the then and now payments?
From members of council, from other elected officials?
Just to say there'll be a few more next week.
Okay.
Not next week.
Well,
2 weeks, yeah.
Next week, yeah.
Okay, and anything from the public on this? Yes, please come forward to the podium, yes.
Just do have a quick question.
We would just still want people to be able to hear you, so if you could move to the podium, we would just briefly reintroduce yourself, and then please share any questions or comments you have.
Yeah, my name's Jeff Kuhn. Live on South May Avenue. I'm not trying to make this take any longer, but did you skip 0726 by accident after talk of all the auditing? The internet auction?
Oh, we did.
I don't believe that was right.
Yes.
So I just want to point that out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good point of order. As long as it's okay with our clerk, we would go back. That was for second reading, and I just didn't read it, perhaps? Oh, I did read it.
Yeah, we did read it.
I may not have invited any question or comments. Were there any significant questions or comments on ordinance 07-26 that we missed? Okay, thank you for checking that.
Michael, we do have more?
Yes, for first readings, we have some more coming up as well. But for now, on the then and now certificates for payment and declaring an emergency, we had a motion and a second to suspend the rules. We suspended the rules, and now we're preparing for a vote. A motion on it to take a vote to adopt ordinance 15-26.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Clodfelder, seconded by Thomas, and now a vote to approve ordinance 15-26 under the suspended rules. Do we have a motion? Or sorry, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. All right, so we passed 15-26 unanimously under suspended rules. And since our agenda was amended at the beginning of this regular session, we now have 3 ordinances from Transportation Committee that met prior to this regular session. Ordinances 016, 017, and 518, which I will ask Member Clodfelder to speak to.
Yep, and I will be brief. I read all the different events into the record during the committee meeting, so I'll just read the text of the agreement so everyone knows what we're talking about. So, Ordinance 01626 is an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to close streets in the uptown area for 2026 special events and to change requested dates or cancel the events as necessary. Section 1, the Service Safety Director is hereby authorized to close streets in the uptown area for the following 2026 special events, which again have already been read into the record. Change requested dates or cancel the events as necessary, and to implement the following. A, close designated streets to vehicular traffic in the city of Athens no earlier than 6 a.m. and no later than midnight, and maintain cross traffic wherever practical for the following events that were read earlier. And B, ban parking on designated streets beginning no earlier than 3 a.m. and no later than 1 a.m. the following day to accommodate said events. So that has been read into the record. Ordinance 0-17-26 is an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code Title 13, General Offenses, Chapter 13.04, Offenses against Public Peace, Section 13.04.10, Unnecessary Noise in Designated Event Areas. Section 1, the enforcement of Athens City Code Title 13, General Offenses, Chapter 13.04, Offenses against Public Peace, Section 13.04.10, Unnecessary Noise, is hereby suspended until midnight on the day of the event for the following street closures authorized by Ordinance 1626. And again, those events were read into the record previously. And lastly, Ordinance 0-18-26 is an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code Chapter 11.04 vending, peddling, and soliciting to allow vending in designated event areas. Section 1, the enforcement of Athens City Code Chapter 11.04 vending, peddling, and soliciting is hereby suspended from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. to allow vending in the designated street closure areas authorized by Ordinance 16-26 at such times and areas determined appropriate by the administration for the following events, which were read into the record earlier. And Section 2, prospective vendors shall register their name, address, and items to be vended with the Code Enforcement Office on or before 2 business days prior to listed events by 2 p.m. So you got to get your requests in 2 days before the events by 2 in the afternoon. Vendors shall be entitled to vending spots on a first-come basis as determined by the Code Enforcement Office. Vendors must comply with all rules and regulations established by the Office of Code Enforcement. And Section 3, vending shall be subject to the following. Those vendors currently holding a license to vend on East Union Street shall be allowed to continue to operate at a time and location determined by the Service Safety Director and the event organizer, and a fee of $25 per vendor and food license permit from the Athens City Council Health Department shall be established for all others per trailer and paid to the City of Athens Code Enforcement Office, and any such additional administrative rules and regulations as may be established by the Safety Service Director. So, ordinances 0-1626, 0-1726, and the related 0-1826 have been read into the record.
Absolutely. And thank you, Member Clodfelder. Just to confirm, we are not asking or seeking any suspensions of the rules for tonight on these 3 ordinances, to my knowledge. Okay. Want to thank the Deputy City and Safety Service Director and anyone else who's helped with the big logistical haul that this is. We know that we've asked over the years for information about these festivals and street closures to come to council earlier, and really appreciate that. And thank you to Transportation Chair Clodfelder for your work getting these read for the first time. And anything else from you, Member Clodfelder, on these?
No.
Okay, all right. Now under resolution for first reading. Okay. Resolution 04-26, a resolution designating depositories for active monies for deposit in public depositories pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Chapter 135 and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you. We talked about these in the last couple weeks of committees. These are the banks that applied to be holders of active monies for the city. 3 applications were received and accepted, JP Morgan Chase Bank, Hocking Valley Bank, and People's Bank. And all were approved according to Resolution 02026. And the, let's see, active public monies of the city and were designated as follows: JP Morgan Bank, not to exceed 25 million, Hocking Valley Bank, not to exceed 15 million, People's Bank, not to exceed 15 million. This again is for 5 years, and in 5 years, this whole process will occur again. Yeah. Any further questions? Oh, yes, we need to move to, well, is this a one reading or is this a?
Not one reading, but we are suspending the rules.
All right, so we do need to move to suspend. Okay, all right. Can I have a motion to suspend?
Second.
Second.
Oh, I thought you did.
Okay. Not, did you catch?
Split it between us.
Okay.
She said I need a motion, that's my bad.
All right. So we've had a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Any discussion on the suspension of the rules? All right. From the administration or other elected officials, from the public? Seeing none. All in favor of suspending the rules for Resolution 04-26 indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, the rules have been unanimously suspended. Member Thomas.
Thank you.
Now, do we want to move to adopt?
So move.
Second.
I have a question.
Discussion?
Member Thomas, the other member Thomas, any idea what we're looking at interest rates nowadays?
Everything's ranging between around 4%.
Oh, really?
You could get a little bit more than that in different areas. Now, for these accounts, these are going to be checking and savings accounts. You're not going to get a whole lot out of that.
Okay.
For the interim monies.
Right,
that-
the interim
that
money,
other
yeah.
Places, yeah, around that right now.
Okay.
And just to clarify on these, the amounts in the previous agreement that we had 5 banks that applied, and it was 10 million, 10 million, 10 million. Because 3 banks applied, that's why the amounts are just a little bit different. We upped it to about 55 million in the hopes that maybe we have more money, coming in the city. But otherwise, everything's the same. Once you approve this, I'll sign the banking agreements for the 3 banks, send them back, and we'll be ready to go by March 1st by ordinance.
Wonderful. Do we have any additional comments or questions? Rules have been suspended, so our next step would be to go for a vote. All right. Seeing no additional questions or comments, all in favor of, Mr. Mayor, sorry.
I do have a comment because I'm on record about the possibility of us working with Adelphi Bank in Columbus, which is a Black-owned financial institution. I tried on multiple occasions to speak with their senior administration about our potential desire, and our desire could be one thing. The financial institutions have to basically reach out to the treasurer to indicate their interest in having our money being put into accounts in the various banks. And so therefore, I know that treasurer reached out to me a couple times to see if I had heard or contact info for Adelphi Bank. And again, it was no return calls, no responses.
Right. But on that note, if we do have, this is for our active monies. If we have interim monies, if I'm looking to invest a CD, right, the first thing I do is I look around and see who's got a good rate, and we can still include them in that process.
Sure. Thank you for that update and for the additional information. Any other questions before we take this to the vote? All right. All in favor of approving Resolution 04-26, designating depositories for active monies, indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. All right, so Resolution 04-26 has passed unanimously. We now have time for announcements and other business. And the first item is to confirm the mayor's appointments to the Commission on Disabilities. And those intended appointees include Anna Nagy Heinrich, Margaret Hutzel, and John McCarthy. May we have a motion to confirm the mayor's appointments to the Commission on Disabilities?
So moved. Second.
All right, had a motion from Member Clodfelder and a second from Member Thomas. And now, do we have any discussion of these confirmations, comments from the public or elected officials? All right, all in favor of approving these appointments to the Commission on Disabilities indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, all the appointments have been confirmed unanimously. Do we have any other announcements for other business? Seeing none, we now have opportunities for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services not covered on the agenda. If you are here for that reason, you've been waiting for a long time.
Yeah, you get a gold medal.
All right. Seeing none, we now need a motion to move into executive session. Member Swank?
Mr. President, I would move that all members of council, the mayor, law director, do we need the,
Well, if you want them to be in the executive session, yes. And
Yeah,
then
you-
also
you guys-
assistant service safety.
yeah, okay, the treasurer, auditor, and assistant service safe director for discussion of pending litigation.
So we've had a motion to move into executive session for the reasons described. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second recognized by Member Thomas. And now, let's do a roll call vote, yes. All right, so all in favor of moving into executive?
Roll call.
Sorry, roll call, I don't need to say that. Member Almeida, yay for yes to move into executive session or nay?
Yay.
Member Stazer?
Yay.
Member Wood?
Yay.
Member Swank?
Yes.
Member Gladfelder?
Yay.
Member Thomas?
Yay.
Member Sherwood?
Yay.
Okay. Our procedure will be to ask our public to exit the room, and we will formally close the door to indicate that executive session has begun. At the end of executive session, we will open the door, and if you are someone who has questions for council at that time, be available briefly to bring folks back for that, and then to officially adjourn. But at this time, unless you have been asked to remain for executive session, it is time to vacate council chambers.
Thank you for hanging in there.